Chapter 416. If it's not Han Jianxing, then who could it be? This question stumped everyone present. The third elder of the Sky Gold sect glanced at the two elders of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect who had come to investigate. Finally, he looked back at the disciples of the three sects who were guarding the entrance. He asked, "Think about it carefully. Apart from Han Jianxing, are there any other experts who entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield? Not just recently, but also experts who have entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield in the past and have yet to come out." The disciples thought for a moment and shook their heads. The yin qi in the Ancient Dragon battlefield is too strong. That's why many people only stay for half a month before coming out. In the past month, the experts above level 8 who have entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield are all disciples of the three sections. As for the other factions apart from Han Jianxing, there's also a Grand Desolate Master. But that Grand Desolate Master has already come out. The third elder of the Sky Gold sect frowned. Could it be a mutated dire beast? But soon he rejected this idea. Although the Ancient Dragon battlefield was dangerous, there weren't many mutated dire beasts. Moreover, the strongest mutated dire beast in the second zone was only level 7. It was impossible for it to tear so many people to pieces in such a short time. After a moment he asked again, "Then think about it carefully. Recently, have there been any people from other forces that are not considered strong but have some strange abilities that have entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield?" The disciples shook their heads at first. Those who could enter the Ancient Dragon battlefield were not weak at all. But soon, someone thought of something and suddenly said, "Oh yes, a level 2 Desolate Hunter entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. The Ancient Dragon battlefield was very dangerous. Generally speaking, only Desolate Hunters above level 5 would take the risk to enter the Ancient Dragon battlefield. As for the level 5 Desolate Hunters, entering the Ancient Dragon battlefield was basically a suicide mission. But now, a level 2 Desolate Hunter had entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Naturally, it was very strange. Everyone's eyes were focused on the disciple who spoke. The third elder asked again, "You let a level 2 Desolate Hunter in?" The disciple shook his head and said, "We didn't want to. We didn't plan to let him in, but Han Jianxing came later. He even took the initiative to greet the level 2 Desolate Hunter. It seems like they have a good relationship. So we didn't dare to stop him." The disciple's voice became softer and softer as he spoke. They had indeed failed in their duties. At the very least, they should find out the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. However, they also had their own difficulties. At that time, Han Jianxing's aura was too strong. They didn't dare to say anything. The third elder asked with a solemn expression, "What is his relationship with Han Jianxing? Are they very close, or just acquaintances?" The disciples stammered and finally said, "We're not too sure." At that time he was the first to arrive, and Han Jianxing was right behind him. When Han Jianxing asked him if he had become a second-stage Desolate Hunter, he replied, "Yes." Then Han Jianxing entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield. He followed us into the Ancient Dragon battlefield. The third elder of the Heavenly Gold sect fell silent again. Under such circumstances, it was really hard to determine the relationship between that brat and Han Jianxing. Han Jianxing came to the Ancient Dragon battlefield once a year, regardless of whether it was a low or high tide. He came here to pay his respects to his deceased wife. This wasn't strange. But where did that brat come from? What was his relationship with Han Jianxing? At this time, the elder of the Heavenly Water sect asked, "That second-stage Desolate Hunter and Han Jianxing entered the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Were they heading here?" The disciple who answered shook his head at first, then nodded his head. The others were puzzled. What did he mean by nodding and shaking his head? The disciple replied, "Han Jianxing went in the direction of the 4th district. He goes in that direction every year. But that second-stage Desolate Hunter went in the direction of the 2nd district." At this point he suddenly paused. The rest of the crowd also came to their senses. A second-stage Desolate Hunter dared to go into the 2nd district alone. There was definitely something strange about this. Moreover, this tragedy happened in the 2nd district and he was heading there. Obviously he was the most suspicious. At this time, one of the disciples guarding the entrance seemed to have thought of something. He said, "Right now that I think about it, that second-stage Desolate Hunter looks a bit like the murderer in the video message of the first elder a few days ago." Hearing this, the others felt a chill in their hearts. The third elder's voice suddenly became a lot harsher. "Why didn't you report this before?" The disciples all panicked. Before he and Han Jianxing came at the same time. We thought they were related. Moreover, the third elder waved his hand, We'll talk about your questions later. Everyone retreat to the entrance immediately. Everyone immediately activated their hoverboards and flew towards the entrance. Since that brat had the strength to kill 200 desolate hunters in an instant, the disciples guarding the entrance naturally couldn't defend. Therefore, the third elder ordered everyone to reinforce the entrance. At the same time, the third elder secretly estimated the strength of himself and that brat. As a level 10 desolate hunter, even if he couldn't win against that brat, he wouldn't be killed by him. However, if that brat and Han Jianxing came at the same time, it would be troublesome. However, the first elder was the second in command of the Sky Gold sect after the sect master. He was someone who couldn't be offended. The first elder's personal disciple had been killed, so he naturally wanted to take revenge. Moreover, that brat had probably killed more than 70 Sky Gold sect disciples, as well as hundreds of Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples. This debt couldn't be let go just like that. Even if he had Han Jianxing behind him and couldn't take revenge on that brat, he had to at least ask for an explanation. Otherwise, the Sky Gold sect, Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect, the top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, would become a laughing stock. Thinking of this, the third elder reported this matter to the sect master of the Sky Gold sect. The sect master of the Sky Gold sect immediately ordered the first elder to bring more than 50 desolate hunters to the ancient dragon battlefield as reinforcements. At the same time, the 2 elders of the Skywood sect and Heavenly Water sect also reported to their sect masters. After all, more than 70 desolate hunters had died in their sections. One had to know that every desolate hunter was made up of countless resources. Now that 70 of them had died, it was definitely a heavy loss. Moreover, this matter was very likely related to Han Jianxing. If they didn't report this, how could the elders resist Han Jianxing? Chapter 417. When the elders of the Sky Gold, Skywood and Skywater sects realized that Han Jianxing might be involved, they immediately contacted their respective sections. After a discussion, the upper echelons of the 3 sects decided that each sect would send a Grand Desolate Master to the ancient dragon battlefield. If this matter had nothing to do with Han Jianxing, it would be good. If it did, then the 3 Grand Desolate Masters would be able to make Han Jianxing feel apprehensive. Of course, they did not know that Han Jianxing had already been promoted to a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. As for these 3 sects, all the 4 Grand Desolate Masters were only level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. In the end, the 3 Grand Desolate Masters of the 3 sects led close to 500 Desolate Master disciples to guard the entrance for 3 days, but they did not see Immortality come out. Especially the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder. He was eager to avenge his disciple and said to the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects, "You guys continue to guard here with your disciples. I'll go in and search." The Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects wanted to stop him, but when they saw the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder's determined gaze, they gave up. Many people said that Yi Bufan was actually the illegitimate son of the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder. However, due to many complicated relationships, he could not admit it, so he could only accept Yi Bufan as his disciple. Now that his son had been killed, he was naturally furious. If they insisted on stopping him, he would probably be displeased. Therefore, the Grand Desolate Masters of the other 2 sects told the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder to be careful and let him go. Seeing the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder lead the 100 Desolate Masters into the depths of the ancient dragon battlefield, the 2 Grand Desolate Masters shook their heads. One of them said, "Nothing will happen to him, right?" The other said, "Although he's eager to avenge his disciple, he's not a young man without schemes. If he really meets Han Jianxing, I believe he knows what he's doing." The Grand Desolate Master sighed, "Sigh, I hope so." The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder led the 100 Desolate Masters and flew towards District 2. They arrived at the edge of the underground cavern. Then he said to the disciples, "With this place as the center, spread out and search. Once you find traces of that kid, don't attack him. Contact me immediately." The group of disciples didn't dare to disobey and replied, "Yes." As they spoke, they spread out in all directions to search the area. However, as they searched, these disciples were somewhat on tenterhooks. Although they had the backing of a Grand Desolate Master, the murderer was an existence that could instantly kill over 200 desolate hunters. If that brat really went crazy, then they would be torn to shreds by that brat before Head Elder arrived at all. But now that things had come to this, how could they dare to disobey the Great Elder's orders? They could only continue to search the area. At this time, Immortality had already thoroughly investigated District 2. He didn't find anything else of value here, so he set off for District 3. The third zone of the ancient dragon battlefield was a lake. There were over 1,000 lakes of various sizes here. The large ones were tens of thousands of square kilometers, while the small ones were only slightly more than 1,000 square meters. So many lakes formed a huge group of lakes. These lakes were more than 10,000 meters deep. In these lakes, water plants crisscrossed. If he wanted to go down for a swim, it was very likely that he would be entangled by the aquatic plants. From the looks of it, there weren't any mountains or forests here, so there didn't seem to be any danger. However, since this place was classified as District 3, it meant that it was more dangerous than District 2. Therefore, Mosher didn't relax in the slightest. He first used his draconic sense to completely investigate the area within a radius of 350 kilometers. He found that the surface seemed to be very safe and there wasn't any danger. He then controlled his draconic sense to investigate these lakes. In his investigation, he found that there were many skeletons in these lakes. These skeletons weren't complete. After an unknown amount of time, many of the skeletons had been corroded by the microorganisms in the lake water until they were full of holes. However, according to the location of these skeletons, after a rough reconstruction, he found that these skeletons were basically the skeletons of dragons. The small ones were only about 50 meters long, while the large ones were more than 1,000 meters long. All of the skeletons were basically incomplete. However, he could occasionally detect that some of the skeletons still had the skull of a dragon. Their sharp and thick teeth, their angular brow bones, and the dozens of sharp bone spurs on their heads. All of them described the might, power, and dominance of this dragon when it was alive. These dragon skeletons all had a certain research value. One of them could be sold for a lot of money. However, Mosher didn't care about this small amount of money. After inheriting almost all the property of the owner of Hunting Island No. 1, Mosher wasn't short of money at all now. In his eyes, money was just a string of numbers. Therefore, his current focus wasn't on these things. He was looking for one thing, the Dragon Ball fragments. He already had 2 Dragon Ball fragments. If he swallowed another one, the Sea Dragon avatar should be able to evolve into a real Eastern Divine Dragon. However, after flying over this group of lakes for half a day and investigating for half a day, he still didn't find any Dragon Ball fragments. It seemed that he was overthinking. According to legend, it seemed that only Eastern Divine Dragons had Dragon Balls in their bodies. As for Western dragons, he didn't seem to have heard of any Dragon Balls. And the dragon skeletons in these lakes seemed to belong to Western dragons. It was normal that there were no Dragon Balls. After searching in District 3 for another 2 days, Mosher even condensed his virus avatar and entered these lakes. In the end, he didn't find anything. This made him feel a little strange. According to the memories of all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Trisect, District 3 should be more dangerous than District 2, and there should be more treasures to be obtained. However, there was neither danger nor any treasure to be obtained here. This was very strange. However, since he couldn't figure it out for the time being, Mosher simply stopped thinking about it. Instead, he continued to head to more dangerous places. However, not long after Mosher left, the largest lake in the group of lakes seemed to suddenly light up. Looking down from the sky, this lake seemed to be a window. At night, someone used a flashlight to flash through this window. However, it only lit up for a moment and soon dimmed again. As if nothing had happened. Mosher left the 3rd zone and headed towards the most dangerous zone, the 4th zone. After arriving here, Mosher's vigilance was much higher. Whether it was the map he obtained or the memories he plundered from those people, District 4 was extremely dangerous. The danger was not only because there were some powerful mutated wild beasts here, but also because there were many dragon spirits here. Chapter 4:18. From the map and the memories of the Skygold sect disciples, Mosher knew that the 4th zone was the most dangerous zone in the ancient dragon battlefield. Therefore, as soon as he arrived here, he raised his guard. The spirit-engulfing beast beside him also lowered its body and looked around nervously from time to time. However, to Mosher's surprise, this place was not as creepy as he had imagined. On the contrary, it was a large grassland. The grass was not very tall, only reaching his knees. There were large patches of wildflowers in the grass. Red, blue, yellow, purple, and white. A breeze blew and the flowers nodded. A large river meandered through the grassland. It looked like a jade belt under the sunlight. Not far away there were a few birds with beautiful feathers. They flew in the sky for a while and then disappeared into the flowers. The sun was shining brightly and the flowers were fragrant. No matter what, no one would associate this place with the ancient dragon battlefield. Mosher probed with his dragon will and soon found a figure sitting on the bank of the river more than 200 kilometers away. His face was full of whiskers and there was a giant technological sword beside him. This person was none other than Han Jianxing. At this moment Han Jianxing was holding a wine jug and facing the river. He raised his head and took a sip from time to time. Beside him was a grave filled with weeds and wildflowers. In front of the grave was a stone tablet that was taller than a person. There were 4 words written on it: Tomb of the Deceased Wife. The name of the tomb owner was not engraved, nor was the person who had set up the tablet. Han Jianxing came to this city once a year to mourn for his deceased wife. It was admirable indeed. At this moment Han Jianxing might have already known that Immortality was here. However, he did not seem to care at all. At this moment he did not want to be disturbed by anyone. Immortality did not intend to disturb him either. He continued to probe nearby. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers behind Immortality, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect had brought more than 100 disciples to the edge of the 4th zone. A disciple said, "First elder, according to the life detector we left behind, that guy has entered the 4th zone. Should we follow him?" The first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "Yes, why not?" That disciple still wanted to say something, but another disciple beside him tugged at the corner of that disciple's clothes. The disciple could only swallow his words. However, everyone else was thinking the same thing as him. Ever since they knew about the Ancient Dragon battlefield, they had heard that District 4 of the Ancient Dragon battlefield was terrifying. Every elder warned them, if you have the chance to go to the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon in the future, don't enter District 4 without careful consideration. Therefore, now that the Great Elder had allowed them to enter, they felt somewhat uneasy. But Head Elder's orders they did not dare to defy either. He could only grit his teeth and follow the first elder into the 4th district. As he walked, he silently comforted himself. With the Grand Elder, the Grand Desolate Master, there shouldn't be any problems. The Great Elder wasn't stupid. Although his heart was filled with anger and hatred, he did not let it get to his head. He knew that although the Ancient Dragon battlefield was terrifying, it was currently at a low ebb and was not as scary as before. Moreover, the scariest part of the Ancient Dragon battlefield was only at night. During the day, this place was no different from any other ordinary place in the outside world. Since there were various signs that indicated that this kid had gone to District 4. Naturally, he had to let his disciples follow him in to search before the sky turned dark. After about 2 hours, a level 10 psychic master from the Sky Gold sect suddenly said, "Found him." The disciples of the Sky Gold sect were stunned. The Sky Gold sect's Great Elder immediately ordered, "Lead the way." The level 10 psychic master replied, "Yes." Then he quickly flew forward. The 100 or so disciples of the Sky Gold sect immediately followed. After a while they saw Immortality stopping in the middle of the grassland. Moreover, Immortality did not panic at all when he saw them. Instead he looked at them with a smile. This made them somewhat puzzled. The Sky Gold sect's Great Elder's eyes were filled with anger. "Kid, did you kill my disciple Ibufan?" Immortality was facing a Grand Desolate Master who was almost a level higher than him. He calmly nodded and said, "Yes." Everyone was stunned. Ordinary people would not be able to speak properly when they met a Grand Desolate Master. This kid was not afraid of killing a Grand Desolate Master's disciple and even dared to admit it. Was he crazy? The Sky Gold sect's Great Elder's face turned colder. He asked in a deep voice, "Did you kill the 70 or so disciples of the Sky Gold sect?" Immortality smiled again and said, "Yes." Hearing this, everyone from the Sky Gold sect was dumbfounded. There were not many people who dared to offend the Sky Gold sect. This kid had killed the Sky Gold sect's disciples and even admitted it in front of so many of them. He was really about to go crazy. Although the Sky Gold sect's Great Elder was furious, he thought to himself, "This kid is so confident because he has Han Jianxing behind him. But now that things have come to this, he could not care less. I'll take him down and make him suffer. I'll make a decision when Han Jianxing really shows up." Having this thought, his aura burst out from his body. All the wild flowers and weeds within a 10-kilometer radius were pressed against the ground by his aura. Some rocks that had been weathered over time were turned into dust by his aura. The aura of a Grand Desolate Master was so terrifying. But at this moment, Longwei's aura suddenly spread out from Immortality's body. In an instant, the disciples of the Sky Gold sect with a lower cultivation level knelt on the ground. Even the disciples with a higher cultivation level could not help but feel the urge to kneel on the ground and worship Lin Fan. Even the Sky Gold sect's Great Elder felt the urge to worship Lin Fan. He could not help but feel shocked. What the hell was this kid doing? Lin Fan was clearly weaker than him, and his aura was even more different. Why did he suddenly feel the urge to worship Lin Fan? He naturally did not know that Emoshir's Long Wei did not care about how strong one was. It was a kind of suppression between species. Since ancient times, dragons had been the most mysterious and powerful creature in the universe. Any living creature would unconsciously have the urge to submit when encountering a dragon. However, the stronger the creature, the weaker the urge to submit. The Sky Gold sect's great elder thought that this urge to submit came from his fear of Han Jianxing, who was behind Emoshir. He could not help but feel a little angry. Han Jianxing was like a mountain. For so many years, he had been above all the forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. He had left them breathless. Now that they were in the ancient dragon battlefield, he was still suppressing them. If there came a day where he could raise his strength to another level, he would definitely kill this Han Jianxing. Chapter 419. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect led more than 100 disciples to find Emoshir. Emoshir didn't panic at all. Instead, he calmly admitted that he was the one who had done everything. At the same time, he released his Long Wei. The Long Wei now wasn't the Long Wei that had been cultivated in the dragon's cave. It was the Long Wei that Emoshir had released after he evolved into the bloodthirsty demon dragon. Humans were considered a very weak species in front of dragons. Even a Grand Desolate Master was much weaker in front of a real dragon. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect naturally had the urge to worship Lin Huang. However, he was a Grand Desolate Master after all. In terms of cultivation level, he was almost an entire realm higher than Emoshir. Very quickly he suppressed the urge to worship Lin Huang. "Humph, you're just trying to mystify me." He let out a loud shout, and his imposing aura burst out once again, pressing down on Emoshir. He was facing the aura of an expert who was almost an entire realm higher than him. Even Emoshir didn't dare to face it head-on. He had already planned to summon the Sea Dragon clone. The fourth zone was more dangerous. Therefore, he had already recalled the Sea Dragon clone the moment he entered the fourth zone and let it enter his personal reservoir. Once there was danger, he would summon it immediately. However, just as the great elder of the Sky Gold sect's aura was about to press down on Emoshir, at this moment, an even stronger aura suddenly pressed down on the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. That aura was far stronger than the great elder of the Sky Gold sect. The great elder of the Sky Gold sect's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly retracted the aura that was pressing down on Emoshir. At the same time, a Long Wei that was 100 times larger than Emoshir's Long Wei suddenly attacked. Long Wei wasn't like aura that could form substantial pressure. It was formless, and didn't have any destructive power. It was elegant, intellectual, approachable, or sloppy and wretched. In essence, it wouldn't cause any harm to others. However, Long Wei was able to create an extremely strong psychological pressure on creatures other than the Dragon Clan. Emoshir had just evolved into a giant dragon, but his Long Wei was already able to make opponents who were almost an entire realm higher than him feel the urge to worship him. One could only imagine how much of an impact a Long Wei that was 100 times stronger than his Long Wei would have on his opponent's psyche. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were terrified when they saw Long Wei. The timid ones fell straight to the ground. Those who were braver also knelt on the ground one after another. All of them were trembling in fear, not even daring to raise their heads. Only the great elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, could barely remain standing. However, in the face of Long Wei, they felt as if they were standing in front of an ancient behemoth. In front of this colossus, even though he was a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, he was still insignificant. This gigantic creature only needed to move its claws slightly to crush him into dust. Furthermore, when this colossus moved its claws, he couldn't even think of resisting. He didn't even have the thought of running away. Most importantly, this feeling made him panic. One had to know that in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master was already the pinnacle of existence. Ever since he became a level 1 Grand Desolate Master in the past 50 years, he had never felt the fear of being dominated. However, he felt it now. If that was the case, how strong was this kid? However, he soon forced himself to stay alert. This kid was just a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. How could he be so strong? Furthermore, it didn't seem like Han Jianxing was behind this. In his opinion, Han Jianxing was also a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. At the same level as him. Even if Han Jianxing's battle strength was much higher than his, it was impossible for him to feel such a strong sense of oppression. This brat must have used some kind of method to deceive them. He looked at Emoshir. He saw that Emoshir didn't feel the slightest bit of pressure. That's right, this kid must be playing tricks on me. Thinking of this, he said sternly, "Disciples of the Sky Gold sect, listen up. This kid is acting mysterious. As long as we overcome the fear in our hearts, he's just a desolate paper beast. However, after he finished speaking, none of the Sky Gold sect disciples responded. He turned around and saw that all the Sky Gold sect disciples were kneeling on the ground, trembling. They didn't even dare to raise their heads. The Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was dumbfounded. What was going on? Was this kid so terrifying? At the same time, Immortality was also dumbfounded. He didn't do anything. What was wrong with these guys? At this moment, a shadow slowly rose from the ground behind Immortality. It was a huge shadow that was 1,000 meters long and 800 meters wide. This phantom looked like a giant dragon. Its head, claws, tail, eyes, and scales could all be seen clearly. Although it was just a shadow, it gave off a strong sense of deterrence. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect trembled in fear when they saw this scene. Giant dragon, evil spirit. Giant dragon, evil spirit. It's over. It's over. Run, run. The moment they saw the dragon soul, everyone's expression changed drastically. Giant dragon evil spirits were different from dragon spirits. Dragon spirits were the combination of dragon consciousness and energy. Giant dragon evil spirits were formed when the energy in the dragon's body didn't dissipate immediately after the dragon died. This energy wrapped around the dragon's consciousness and left it behind. Over time, this consciousness gradually became chaotic. Only the dragon's instinct to kill and devour was left. This was known as a giant dragon evil spirit. A giant dragon evil spirit had terrifying energy. Humans like them couldn't fight against it at all. Moreover, the evil spirit only had the instinct to kill and devour. Therefore, as long as the evil spirit didn't dissipate, it would kill and devour endlessly. However, the giant dragon evil spirit would only appear at night. After all, it was an evil spirit and was a little afraid of sunlight. Why would this giant dragon evil spirit appear in broad daylight? Seeing this, the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder hurriedly shouted, "Run!" In the next moment he turned and fled first. When the rest of the Sky Gold sect disciples saw this, they all turned and fled. At this moment, the giant dragon evil spirit spread its wings and swooped down. It spat out a mouthful of dragon breath at the humans below. Its dragon breath was an enormous amount of energy. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions rang out continuously within a radius of 10 kilometers. Smoke and dust filled the air as sparks flew everywhere. The beautiful grassland that had been like a paradise just now instantly turned into a battlefield. The Sky Gold sect disciples who were attacked immediately screamed as they were sent flying. With just one attack, more than 10 Heavenly Gold sect disciples had been killed. The remaining Sky Gold sect disciples were severely injured even if they weren't killed. Even the Sky Gold sect Grand Elder was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the shockwave of the explosion. Chapter 420. Even the first elder of the Sky Gold sect, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was sent flying 1,000 meters away by the energy attack of the dragon evil spirit. As for the other disciples of the Sky Gold sect, they were all sent flying as well. Most of them were injured. More than 10 desolate hunters died on the spot. When Immortality saw this scene, he immediately became anxious. That's right, he wasn't scared. He was panicking. These Heavenly Gold sect disciples were the kill points that he had already decided on. Other than him, no one else was allowed to kill the Sky Gold sect disciples. He would fight whoever killed him. At that moment, the colossal dragon evil spirit flapped its wings and flew towards Immortality after using its energy to send the Heavenly Gold sect disciples flying. Through its illusory body, one could see that the energy had already gathered in its abdomen. Then it moved from its abdomen to its throat. Finally, it gathered in its mouth. It was now less than 5,000 meters away from Immortality. 5,000 meters sounded very far. But for the 1,000-meter-long dragon evil spirit, 5,000 meters was enough for it to launch an attack. On its illusory head, the huge mouth opened like a cave that had been sealed for thousands of years. Between its sharp fangs and scarlet tongue, the fiery red energy had already gathered into a white color. White hot. The next moment, boom, the white hot energy spread out in a fan shape. With the dragon's mouth as the center, it swept through the space with a radius of 5,000 meters. The Sky Gold sect disciples heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this. This kid was dead meat. As long as this kid died, they could immediately activate the wormhole transportation device and leave this godforsaken place. They had had enough of this godforsaken place. Seeing this, the first elder of the Sky Gold sect felt the anger in his chest rising up to his throat. He was about to vent his anger. This kid had killed more than 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Most importantly, he had killed his son. Now he was finally going to die. It was a pity that he couldn't kill him personally. He had let him off too easily. Just as the energy was about to reach Immortality, Immortality suddenly stopped. Immortality used his mind. A knife appeared in his hand. The knife looked very ordinary. It was like the knife used by the butchers during the Lunar New Year. The handle of the saber was wrapped in a dirty white cloth. The unique characteristic of this saber could only be described in one word: big. The broadest part of the blade was more than 2 feet wide. The blade was actually more than 2 meters long. Dragon Salyer. Immortality held the Dragon Salyer in his hand, and more than half of the energy in his body crazily poured into the Dragon Salyer. Other than being big, the ordinary-looking Dragon Salyer was actually shining at this moment. Furthermore, the closer the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit got, the brighter the light of the Dragon Salyer became. It was like a lighthouse in the dark night. The darkness was overwhelming, as if it was going to swallow the entire world. But Lighthouse was not afraid. It did its best to release its light, tearing the darkness apart. In the next strike, Immortality raised the dragon slaughtering saber above his head. Perpendicular to the ground, it slashed down toward the overwhelming energy. In the next moment, a chaotic energy that seemed black and white, yet was neither black nor white, surged out from the dragon slaughtering saber. Whoosh! This energy was in the shape of an arc. Its momentum was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit that was originally attacking Immortality from all directions suddenly stopped when it was only half a meter away from Immortality. This feeling was as if a tsunami was attacking you from all directions, but it suddenly stopped when it was half a meter away from you. It was extremely dangerous, but the scene looked very mysterious. Moreover, even the giant dragon evil spirit in the sky 5,000 meters away suddenly stopped. It was as if someone had used a camera to freeze this scene. But 3 seconds later, a crack appeared in the center of the energy that covered the sky and the earth. This crack was not wide. It was only about 10 centimeters. However, it connected the sky and the earth as if it was going to split the world apart. In the next moment, the energy that covered the sky and the earth instantly dissipated between heaven and earth. It was as if the dark clouds that covered the sky and the earth just now had vanished into thin air in front of a gust of wind. At the same time, in the sky 5 kilometers away, the 1,000-meter-long giant dragon evil spirit was also split into 2 halves. Oh! Accompanied by a long wail, the giant dragon evil spirit also disappeared into thin air. In an instant, the world became clear. It was as if the giant dragon evil spirit had never appeared. It was as if Immortality was the only one left in the whole world. Carrying the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder, he stood against the wind. His entire face seemed to be engraved with 2 big words: pretentious. When the disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect saw this, they all looked at Immortality in disbelief. This guy, is he a human or a god? He actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit. From the moment they knew about the giant dragon evil spirit, everyone had warned them that the giant dragon evil spirit was a very powerful existence. Even a level 1 desolate hunter like the Great Elder could only take a detour when encountering the giant dragon evil spirit. When these desolate hunters encountered the giant dragon evil spirit, they had no other choice but to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. But now this guy actually withstood the giant dragon evil spirit's breath and killed it with a single slash. This was 2F** King exaggerated. Most importantly, when this guy was fighting, they could clearly feel that this guy's aura was only that of a level 2 desolate hunter. One had to know that they were basically level 7 or level 8 desolate hunters. In their eyes, a level 2 desolate hunter was simply an ant. But now, this ant actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. They had never dared to brag like this in their lives. This guy actually did it? This was really too exaggerated. As for the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder, he was even more shocked. The stronger one was, the more one could feel the power of the giant dragon evil spirit. Most importantly, the giant dragon evil spirit did not have a body. It was completely a mixture of soul and energy. Therefore it could not be killed at all. Even if you slashed it with a saber, it could still recover. Even if you blasted it with energy, it could still recover. Even if you fought until you were exhausted and died of exhaustion, you would still not be able to kill it. This was the scariest part about it. Therefore, when encountering a giant dragon evil spirit, the most rational thing to do was to take a detour. But now, this guy actually killed the giant dragon evil spirit with a single slash. How could a mere level 2 desolate hunter be so powerful? Common sense told him that this was simply impossible. While he was still in shock, his gaze fell on the large saber that Emoshur was carrying on his shoulder. It was an ordinary-looking broadsword. On the surface, even the most insignificant disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect would not be interested in this saber. But it was this saber that had split the energy of the giant dragon evil spirit and killed it instantly. Then, this saber was the main reason why this guy could kill the giant dragon evil spirit in an instant. Thinking of this, greed flashed across the Heavenly Gold sect's great elder's eyes. Chapter 421. In the eyes of the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder, the reason why a mere level 2 desolate hunter could kill the giant dragon evil spirit, which even he, a Grand Desolate Master, did not dare to touch, was because of this seemingly insignificant saber. Since the evil spirit was already destroyed, why not take the opportunity to snatch the saber? Even if this kid was related to Han Jianxing, he would have something to say if Han Jianxing pursued the matter. He had killed his personal disciple and over 70 elite disciples of the Sky Gold sect. Compensating him with a saber was not too much, right? Thinking of this, he felt even more confident. Greed immediately appeared in his eyes. However, this greed only lasted for a moment. The Sky Gold sect's motto was that everything had to be righteous. Even if it was to snatch someone else's treasure, there had to be a valid reason. This was deeply engraved in their bones. Thinking of this, he ordered the Sky Gold sect's disciples. Surround this brat. The Heavenly Gold sect disciples only recovered from the shock of seeing Emoshur instantly kill the colossal dragon evil spirit after hearing his shout. They quickly spread out and surrounded Emoshur in the middle. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder said, "Brat, you killed more than 70 of my Sky Gold sect's elite disciples and my personal disciple. I wanted to kill you for revenge, but the Sky Gold sect has always been on good terms with Han Jianxing, so I'll spare your life. However, you have to compensate the Sky Gold sect with this saber so that I can answer to the Sky Gold sect's disciples." At this moment, Emoshur was also in a state of shock. Although the system had explained to him that the dragon-slaying saber had an absolute restraining effect on the dragon's body, soul, energy, dragon consciousness, and other aspects. However, he did not expect it to be so restrained. The giant dragon evil spirit, which even a level 1 Grand Desolate Master did not dare to touch, was killed in one strike. This was too exaggerated. This dragon-slaying saber was indeed a treasure. Seeing the Sky Gold sect's disciples surrounding him, the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder said some high-sounding nonsense. A cold smile appeared on the corner of Emoshur's mouth. How could he not know what the Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder was thinking? If you want to snatch the saber, just do it. What nonsense are you spouting? The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect saw that Emoshur only sneered and did not reply. Immediately, the anger in his heart burned even brighter. "Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for being merciless." As he spoke, his aura suddenly surged. Like a tsunami, it pressed down on Emoshur. At the same time, hundreds of kilometers away by the river, Han Jianxing, who had a full beard, paused slightly as he was about to take a sip of wine. In fact, when these people appeared, he had already sensed them. Naturally, he also sensed the situation Emoshur was in. Of course, he knew that Emoshur knew that he was nearby. Therefore, he had been waiting for Emoshur to speak from the moment these people attacked. In the past, Emoshur had helped him find his daughter, and he had made a promise to Emoshur. He could help Emoshur once. From the beginning, he had been waiting for Emoshur to speak. Especially when the evil dragon appeared, he felt that Emoshur would definitely speak. However, the result was beyond his expectations. This kid actually killed the evil dragon with a single slash. This was really an eye-opener for him. Even he, who was not afraid of the evil dragon, did not want to get into trouble like this. The evil dragon could not cause much harm to him, and he could not kill the evil dragon either. In this regard, this kid was indeed quite capable. Now this kid was facing danger. If he spoke, he would be able to rush over in an instant and save this kid from danger. However, he did not expect this kid to have no intention of looking for him from the beginning until now. Therefore, he naturally would not rush over to save him. Who could he blame if he was courting death? It would be a pity if such a talent died. However, what did that have to do with him? Who asked him to be unwilling to speak? At this moment at the scene, the powerful aura that was like a mountain pressed down on Emoshur. To be honest, Emoshur would definitely not be able to withstand such an aura. He was about to summon the Azure Dragon clone. However, at this moment, another mighty long way suddenly attacked everyone from all directions. Moreover, this long way was 10 times or even 100 times stronger than the long way of the evil dragon. In everyone's hearts, it rose up like the sky and covered the earth. A bone-deep fear was born in everyone's hearts. This kind of fear made them unable to even think of running away. Therefore, all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples knelt on the ground and shivered. Even the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect did not kneel on the ground, but his body also began to tremble. When he raised his head to look, he saw huge shadows rising from the grassland as far as his eyes could see. A dragon evil spirit. 2 giant dragon evil spirits. 3 evil dragon spirits. Hundreds and thousands of evil dragon flapped their wings and soared into the sky. The bone-chilling feeling came from the hundreds and thousands of dragon evil spirits. Just one evil dragon had almost wiped out all the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. Now, there were hundreds and thousands of evil dragon. Even the great elder of the Heavenly Gold Sect felt his scalp go numb. He looked at the disciples who were prostrating on the ground and did not dare to move. While he was shocked, he hurriedly pressed the micro-wormhole transportation device. In the next moment, he transformed into a blue-white ball of light and disappeared instantly. As for the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples, they did not dare to use the micro-wormhole transportation device earlier because the Great Elder was here. No one dared to escape. Now that the Great Elder had escaped, they could naturally escape too. However, no one escaped. Under the immense psychological pressure of Long Wei, they could not even think of escaping. Among all of them, the only one who was not suppressed by Long Wei was Immortality. He was also a bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He could also produce Long Wei. The Long Wei of the evil dragon would naturally not affect him at all. Seeing that the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon spirits were about to kill these people, Immortality hurriedly used his telekinesis to kill the 2 level 10 telekinesis masters among the Heavenly Gold Sect disciples. However, it was a pity that level 10 telekinesis masters were no longer qualified. After killing 2 level 10 telekinesis masters, he did not even gain a single kill point. As for the others, they were basically level 7 to level 8 telekinesis masters. With Immortality's current dragon will, he could not kill them all. At this moment, the hundreds and thousands of evil dragon were already flying over. Even the few evil dragons at the front had begun to condense their energy to bombard it down. Immortality panicked. They were his people. Only he could kill them. At this thought, he swung the dragon-slaying saber on his shoulder. The saber shone brightly. Chapter 422. On the blade of the dragon-slaying saber, a brilliant light shone. A chaotic light that was black and white, but also neither black nor white was suddenly released. In an instant, it enveloped an area of more than 10 kilometers. In the next moment, Immortality faced the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits and leaped up. In the air, the bones on his back creaked. A pair of wings tore through the flesh on his back and stretched out. This pair of wings was about 5 meters wide. On the wings there were more than 10 holes of various sizes. It looked dilapidated, but it gave off a strange, mysterious and powerful feeling. At this time, Han Jianxing, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was stunned when he saw Immortality's pair of wings. He could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a pair of wings. This pair of wings, from the general outline, looked a bit like the wings of the Blood Clan. However, there were so many holes on it, which was very surprising. Moreover, this pair of wings seemed to give off a feeling of having passed through the vicissitudes of time. What kind of wings was this? The moment Immortality spread out his wings, the hundreds and thousands of giant dragon evil spirits seemed to have felt some kind of aura. The weaker ones hurriedly flapped their wings and fled into the distance. The stronger ones seemed to have gone crazy as they flew towards Immortality. Immortality flapped his wings and raised the dragon-slaying saber high up. With a loud shout, "Die!" Following this shout, the dragon-slaying saber swept across. Whoosh! An invisible saber chi swept across half of the sky in an instant. The giant dragon evil spirits that were flying towards Immortality were cut in half by the saber chi after pausing for 3 seconds. In the next moment, they instantly disappeared into the sky. With one slash, hundreds of giant dragon evil spirits were instantly killed. This scene caused all the disciples of the Heavenly Gold Sect to be dumbfounded. In their sect, the strongest person was the sect master. But even their sect master could only take a detour when he saw the giant dragon evil spirits. But this guy was actually able to kill hundreds of them with one slash in the face of so many giant dragon evil spirits. This was simply too exaggerated. Han Jianxing, who was hundreds of kilometers away, was also surprised when he saw this scene. This kid's saber was indeed powerful. But no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't possibly kill over 100 evil dragons with a single slash, right? Even a level 2 Grand Desolate Master like him could not do it. Naturally, he didn't know why Immortality was able to unleash such terrifying power. Firstly, he had the dragon-slaying saber in his hand, which specialized in subduing giant dragons. Secondly, it was because Immortality had evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon. If he only had the dragon Salure, he would not be able to unleash its strongest power. The dragon Salure was used to slay dragons, and the bloodthirsty devil dragon also specialized in slaying dragons for fun. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon used the dragon Salure, how could the dragon have a good time? But even so, Immortality was still shocked by the sudden change in the situation. The power of this dragon Salure was truly formidable. Since the dragon slaughtering saber was so powerful, it naturally had to slaughter all of these giant dragon evil spirits. Thus, Immortality waved his dragon slaughtering saber in the sky and continuously chased after those huge dragon evil spirits. Those that had escaped dozens of kilometers away, he flapped his wings and could catch up to them in an extremely short period of time and kill them. Immortality, who was hiding underground, hacked his saber at the ground. The saber chi went deep into the ground and even the evil spirits were cut in half. The giant dragon evil spirits were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was a tragic sight. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect were all stunned. In the past, they had only heard of giant dragon evil spirits chasing after humans. Who would have thought that one day, there would be a human holding a huge butcher's knife and chasing after these giant dragon evil spirits on the giant dragon ancient battlefield? However, in the midst of their confusion, someone still reacted. He saw that Immortality had already chased after them for dozens of kilometers. He hurriedly shouted to the other disciples in a low voice, "Run!" As he spoke, his right hand had already pressed on the wormhole teleportation device. Seeing this, the other disciples also took out the wormhole teleportation device. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared under their feet. It was the spirit-devouring beast. In their panic, these people did not notice the appearance of the spirit-devouring beast. The spirit-devouring beast opened its mouth. Suddenly, dozens of tentacles appeared in its mouth. These tentacles instantly extended and swept over the hands of these people. Hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles extended from its tentacles and wrapped around the wormhole teleportation device in these people's hands. Then, with a sudden tug, it swallowed the wormhole teleportation device into its mouth. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in an instant. These people did not even have time to react. By the time they reacted, the spirit-devouring beast had already jumped hundreds of meters away. These people's expressions changed drastically. They had already seen Immortality's teleportation ability before, and their fastest speed was only 1,000 meters per second. This was child's play compared to Immortality's teleportation ability. Therefore, the wormhole teleportation device was their only hope if they wanted to escape. However, the spirit-devouring beast had swallowed the wormhole teleportation device. Wasn't this cutting off their escape route? Catch it! A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect yelled. The other disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect heard this and hurriedly ran forward, trying to catch the spirit-devouring beast. However, although the spirit-devouring beast was not very powerful, it was very good at escaping. It directly burrowed into a hole in the ground and did not come out no matter how much energy they released into the hole. These people saw that Immortality was about to kill all the giant dragon evil spirits and became more and more anxious. They even used genetic martial arts to create a huge ravine that was 10 meters wide, 1,000 meters long, and over 20 meters deep in the ground. Even so, they could not find the spirit-devouring beast. What should we do? A disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect wiped his sweat and asked fearfully. Another disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, "What else can we do? If we don't escape now, when will we? Can we escape? That kid can teleport. It's still better than waiting for death here." However, at this moment, a disciple stopped these people. He was the calmest among the 100 disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect. He said, "We can't escape at all. Why don't we all join forces and fight that kid to the death?" Someone shook his head and said, "Fight to the death? Didn't you see how terrifying that kid was when he killed the evil spirits? Fight to the death with him? It's like ants fighting to the death with an elephant. No, it's worse than ants fighting to the death with an elephant." That calm disciple shook his head and said, "From what I saw, that kid didn't seem to have such terrifying combat power when facing our Grand Elder. When the Grand Elder's aura exploded, that kid didn't seem to be able to resist at all. However, when facing these giant dragon evil spirits, his combat power seemed to be off the charts. I'm guessing that the sword in his hand is specially made to restrain the giant dragon evil spirits. After he said that, everyone thought about it and realized that this was indeed the case. At this moment, everyone seemed to see a glimmer of hope. Chapter 423. At that moment, everyone seemed to have seen a glimmer of hope. However, this hope was still rather slim to them. If they did this, they might still have a chance of survival. If they did not do this, they would definitely die. Fight! A disciple shouted. Fight him. There are so many of us. I don't believe we can't beat him. That's right. No matter how strong he is, he's only a level 2 desolate hunter. We have so many level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters. Can't we beat him alone? These people gave themselves a boost of adrenaline and started to condense their genetic weapons. The calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect said, when he comes over later, we'll all activate our energy weapons at the same time and give him a fatal blow. As they spoke, Emoshur had already killed all the giant dragon evil spirits. Then he flapped his black, tattered wings and flew towards the Heavenly Gold sect disciples. Clearly he did not intend to give these Heavenly Gold sect disciples any chance. Hence, the calmest disciple of the Heavenly Gold sect shouted, Energy weapon. At this moment, everyone's genetic weapons glowed red and white and turned into energy weapons. The next moment, everyone's energy weapons shot out red and white light at the same time. Whoosh 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 whoosh, more than 100 red and white light pillars shot towards Emoshur. Seeing this, Emoshur teleported and dodged the red and white light pillars. These people changed their direction again and the red and white light pillars continued to attack Emoshur. Emoshur once again teleported and appeared behind all of them. These people turned around again and aimed their energy weapons at Emoshur. However, when they aimed their energy weapons at Emoshur this time, they were all stunned. Emoshur had already disappeared. What appeared in front of them was a giant dragon. This giant dragon was not as huge as the giant dragon evil spirits. It was only 100 meters long. However, this giant dragon was a real giant dragon. Every black scale on its body had a diameter of 3 meters. Under the sunlight, it shone with a metallic luster. The dragon's claws were 5 meters long and shone with a cold light. There were dozens of javelin-like bone spurs on the dragon's head. This made its already ferocious head even more ferocious. A pair of blood-red eyes, so red that it seemed as if blood could drip out. It had a dragon tail that was dozens of meters long, thick and powerful. On its back, there was a triangular ridge that resembled a blade, extending from its neck to the end of its tail. Its most distinctive feature was its pair of wings. This pair of wings with a wingspan of more than 80 meters actually had many holes of various sizes. It was as if he had casually found 2 broken pieces that had not been repaired for a long time and hung them on the wing bones. The disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had seen Emoshur disappear, but a huge dragon had appeared. He then looked at the dragon's wings, which were almost identical to Emoshur's wings except for the size. They were all dumbfounded. That kid had turned into a giant dragon? Could a human become a dragon? Not even the most ridiculous stories they had ever heard were so ridiculous. This was simply inconceivable. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, finally opened his eyes wide and stood up. He had roamed the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud for dozens of years. He had seen a lot of strange things. However, he had never heard of a human turning into a giant dragon. In all the stories, humans were humans and dragons were dragons. He had never heard of a human becoming a dragon. Speaking of which, this kid could actually become a dragon. No wonder he, a mere level 2 desolate hunter, dared to come to the ancient dragon battlefield alone. It seemed that he had really underestimated him. Previously, no matter how talented he was, Han Jianxing had not put him in his eyes. After all, Han Jianxing himself was a person with great talent. Could be said that in terms of talent, he was the ceiling. He had never seen a person with greater talent than him. He had not cultivated for dozens of years, yet he had risen from a level 1 desolate master to a level 2 desolate master. From this, it could be seen how abnormal his talent was. Therefore, no matter what kind of genius he was, they were all bullshit in his eyes. But now, Emoshur was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was what really surprised him. The moment Emoshur transformed into a dragon, most of the Heavenly Gold sect disciples were dumbfounded. He even stood there in a daze, staring at the 100-meter-long dragon. The calmest disciple was also a little confused. After all, in the eyes of humans, dragons were synonymous with power. They might not have been able to defeat this kid, but now he had transformed into a dragon. How could they fight? But they had to fight even if they couldn't. Energy weapon. He shouted loudly, waking the rest up. Everyone hurriedly aimed their energy weapons at the dragon. Whoosh 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 whoosh, hundreds of energy weapons blasted towards Immortality. Immortality did not dodge. Boom 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 boom. These hundreds of energy weapons blasted onto Immortality's body. They kept exploding into balls of fire. Visually, the dragon that Immortality had transformed into could no longer be seen. He could only see balls of fire exploding at the place where he had been standing. But even so, these heavenly gold sect disciples did not stop. Their energy weapons blasted onto Immortality's body, creating new balls of fire. Boom 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 boom, just like that the bombardment went on for 3 minutes. The calmest disciple raised his right hand, signaling for everyone to stop. After everyone stopped for more than 10 seconds, they saw a figure slowly emerge from the flames at the spot they had blasted. The 100-meter-long dragon was intact, except for its tattered wings. Everyone subconsciously took a few steps back. With so many of them attacking at the same time, even a level 1 Desolate Master would not dare to take it head-on. But this dragon did not dodge and used its body to take on the strongest attacks of over 100 people. The strength of his body was too abnormal. Han Jianxing, who was more than 100 kilometers away, shook his head and sighed, "What a strong body." In the sky, Missouri sure gently flapped his wings while secretly rejoicing in his heart. He did not dodge just now because he wanted to test the strength of his bloodthirsty demon dragon body. One had to know that the greatest strength of a dragon was its terrifying body. If the bloodthirsty demon dragon's body could not withstand the energy weapons of these level 7 and 8 Desolate Masters, it would be too disappointing. Fortunately, the results did not disappoint him. He could feel that the scales of the bloodthirsty demon dragon could withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Not to mention, it had a pair of tattered wings. This pair of wings could also withstand any attack below a level 1 Desolate Master. Chapter 424. The reason why Immortality didn't dodge the attacks of these people was because his scales weren't just for show. His defense was quite strong. Secondly, he had a pair of wings. Although the wings were tattered, they could still withstand any physical and energy attacks below the level of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. With such double insurance, he could naturally try his luck. In Immortality's opinion, if a giant dragon could not even withstand the attacks of a mere Desolate Master, his scales should be removed and thrown into the rubbish bin. At this moment, seeing that he was fine, Immortality opened his mouth wide. A dragon roar came from his throat. Brr, brr. This dragon roar was intimidating. This made all the heavenly gold sect disciples' faces change drastically. Run. At this moment, the calmest disciple could no longer stay calm. With a loud shout, he turned around and fled into the distance. What a joke. So many of them had attacked, but the giant dragon's body had withstood it. If they did not escape now, were they waiting to become its dinner? However, Immortality did not give them the chance to do so. More than 500 meters away, he opened his huge mouth. Boom. A gust of scorching energy came out of his mouth. Red flame dragon breath. This scorching dragon breath instantly engulfed the ground within a radius of 100 meters. It engulfed all the heavenly gold sect disciples. Ah. No. Save me. The ground had turned into a sea of fire. Screams of the heavenly gold sect disciples could be heard from the sea of fire. But after a short 10 seconds there were no more screams. At the same time, the string of numbers representing kill points in Immortality's mind had changed frowny face kill points. 4011000. Looking at the sea of fire on the ground, Immortality could not help but sigh in his heart. Giant dragons were indeed much stronger than humans. As a level 2 giant dragon, he was much weaker than these humans in terms of level. But with the strength of his body, he could crush these Desolate Masters who were 5 or 6 levels higher than him. This was the strength of a giant dragon. After killing all the heavenly gold sect disciples in one move, his kill points had increased by more than 100. It was a pity that there were too few sky gold sect disciples. If there were more, wouldn't he be able to advance again after one move? However, Immortality knew from the memories of these people that they were only disciples of the heavenly gold sect. There were also more than 100 disciples from the heavenly wood sect and the heavenly water sect. In total, there were more than 300 people. Thinking of this, Immortality couldn't help but feel excited. Glancing at the grassland below, he flapped his wings and flew toward the entrance of the ancient battlefield of the great dragon. No matter what secrets or treasures there were in this grassland, they had to be put aside for the time being. To the current Immortality, there was nothing more valuable than killing points. He flapped his wings and flew forward quickly. He was not running at full speed. Even so, it could still reach over 1,000 meters per second. At the same time, in the outside world, in the heavenly gold sect of Cloud State, the Great Elder had already returned to the heavenly gold sect using the wormhole transportation device. He had already found the sect leader and reported what had happened at the ancient dragon battlefield. Sect Master, I've already ordered everyone to use the wormhole teleportation device to escape. However, they still haven't returned. It's obvious that they don't have a chance anymore. Almost all the dragon evil spirits have appeared at the ancient dragon battlefield. If they don't return immediately, they won't be able to return anymore. At this point, the Great Elder's voice became lower and lower. The sect master frowned when he heard this. The Heavenly Gold sect was indeed the most powerful sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. They had more than 300 elite disciples who were level 5 desolate hunters and above. This was a very rich sect. However, more than 200 elite disciples had already died at the ancient dragon battlefield. This was definitely a huge blow to the Heavenly Gold sect. Great Elder, you are responsible for this, the sect leader of the Heavenly Gold sect said. The Great Elder looked guilty. Sect leader, it's indeed my fault for not being able to bring them back. I'll accept any punishment from you. However, compared to punishing me, what's more important now is to plan ahead. In my opinion, that kid Mo Sure is very strange. Although the chances of him surviving in front of thousands of dragon evil spirits aren't high, he still needs to be prepared. We've already formed a deep grudge with him. If he really escapes alive, he'll definitely come to the Heavenly Gold sect to seek revenge. The Heavenly Gold sect leader scoffed. It's fine if he doesn't come. However, if he dares to come to the Heavenly Gold sect, he won't be able to return alive. After the report, the Heavenly Gold sect leader said, since the ancient dragon battlefield is so dangerous, immediately inform the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect to withdraw all disciples. We've suffered great losses. We can't let them suffer with us. Yes. The Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect immediately contacted the Heavenly Water sect and Heavenly Wood sect. Soon, at the entrance of the ancient dragon battlefield, the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect leaders who were guarding there received the news. When they saw this, their expressions changed. They didn't expect that after the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect brought more than 100 elite disciples into the ancient dragon battlefield, everyone except the Great Elder was wiped out. Now that the Great Elder of the Heavenly Gold sect had escaped, there was no point for them to guard here. After a simple discussion, the two of them ordered the disciples. All Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples, activate the wormhole transportation device and return. The Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect disciples couldn't wait to return. One must know that the most terrifying thing in the ancient dragon battlefield was the giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th zone. Now that those giant dragon evil spirits had gone crazy, when were they going to leave? Therefore they all took out the wormhole transportation device. However, at this moment, a roar suddenly came from afar. Roar. Roar. They had heard such a roar many times in the ancient dragon battlefield. Evidently it was the roar of a dragon. However, in the ancient dragon battlefield, the roar of a dragon would only be heard at night. They had never heard it during the day. When the roar of a dragon was heard, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. The roar of a dragon was too oppressive for them. However, this was only secondary. After the roar of a dragon was heard, boom 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 boom, everyone's wormhole teleportation devices exploded one after another. Everyone was startled. The Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect leaders were also shocked. Sound wave attack. That's right. This was Mo Sure's sound wave attack. He already had the skill of a sound wave attack a long time ago. However, as his strength increased, the power of the sound wave attack became less and less impressive. However, in this situation, using the sound wave attack to destroy these people's wormhole transportation devices was pretty good. Chapter 425. Following the dragon's roar, the wormhole teleportation devices of everyone from the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect exploded. Just as everyone was alarmed, someone suddenly pointed to the distant horizon. In the distant sky, a figure was flying over at high speed. At first it was just a black dot. Soon the black dot became bigger. Gradually it became bigger and bigger. Only then did everyone see clearly that it was actually a huge dragon. It was not the phantom of a huge dragon evil spirit, but a real huge dragon. A huge dragon with tattered wings. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Huge dragon. Didn't the huge dragons go extinct tens of thousands of years ago? What's going on? Is it an illusion? While everyone was puzzled and frightened, Mo Shi had already flown above them. When everyone saw this 100-meter-long dragon, they felt an inexplicable sense of insignificance. It was as if they were ants in front of this creature. They even had the urge to kneel down and worship it. When the two sect masters saw this, they suppressed the fear in their hearts and shouted to everyone, "I wonder where this huge dragon came from." However, its strength is clearly lower than a grand desolate master. Disciples, don't panic. Let's work together to slay the dragon. When they said the words, slay the dragon, the two sect masters could not help but feel a sense of pride. Since ancient times, huge dragons were the symbol of mystery and power. As for dragon slayers, they were even more admirable. Now, what the two of them were going to do was exactly what the dragon-slaying warriors had done. How could this not make the two of them feel proud? In fact, their feelings were not wrong. After Mo Shi evolved into a bloodthirsty demon dragon, he was invincible against anyone below the Grand Desolate Master level just based on his physical strength. However, he had only evolved for a short period of time and was only considered a young dragon. If they were to fight face to face, he would not be a match for a Grand Desolate Master. The two sect masters each took out a weapon. One wielded a saber while the other wielded a sword. They all looked like highly advanced weapons. On the saber and sword, a fiery red glow appeared. After reaching the Grand Desolate Master level, one could add energy to their weapons to fight. Although using energy could cause large-scale damage, the lethality was not very strong. On the other hand, when energy was added to a weapon, the damage it could inflict on the enemy was extremely terrifying. Hence, after becoming a Grand Desolate Master, one would have to find a suitable weapon to use. Mo Shi sneered when he saw this. "Do you think that I'm afraid of you just because your weapons are equipped with energy?" "That's right, you're right." However, who didn't have dozens of trump cards? Thinking of this, Mo Shi's mind moved. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared beside him. This figure was actually 2,000 meters long. Such a huge Weiwei gave these humans a strong sense of oppression. From its silhouette, Weiwei looked like a giant snake. However, there were 2 lumps on its head. 4 thick and powerful claws making people shudder. Although dragons had appeared on the flaming continent before, there had never been a Wuxia divine dragon. There wasn't even a legend of the Wuxia dragon god. Therefore, these humans, including the disciples of the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect, had never seen such a monster before. Heavens, what kind of monster is this? I've never seen a desolate beast like this. The two sect masters also had a bad feeling at this moment. In front of this strange creature, they could feel a sense of oppression. It was the sense of oppression when they were obviously not a match for it. Then, in the sky, the sea dragon clone moved. It suddenly turned around, and its huge tail smashed directly at the two sect masters on the ground. Seeing this, the two sect masters knew that they couldn't dodge. They could only hurriedly condense an energy light shield in an attempt to resist this guy's tail. Bang! A huge sound was heard. The sea dragon clone's huge tail smashed into the ground. The two sect masters were smashed directly into the ground. Only the upper half of their bodies were still above the ground. And the protective light shields on their bodies were directly shattered. Both of their heads and faces were covered in blood. The expressions of all the disciples changed drastically when they saw this. These two grand desolate masters were their pillars of support. They were the strongest people here and also their pillar of support. And now, in front of this creature, their pillar of support was smashed to the point of bleeding. How could this not make them panic? Mo Shi controlled the sea dragon clone and didn't give them the slightest chance to resist. It snaked down from the sky. Its huge claws directly grabbed at the two of them. The two of them obviously still wanted to resist for a little while. But before they could complete their resistance, the sea dragon clone's huge claws had already caught them. Even the ground above them was torn by this big guy's sharp claws, creating 2 huge ravines that were 1,000 meters long, 100 meters wide, and more than 10 meters deep. As for the two of them, under the sea dragon clone's sharp claws, they were directly thrown far away. They flew for a full 2 kilometers before falling to the ground. At this time, the two of them no longer had any aura on them. The sea dragon clone's seemingly ordinary claw actually contained the power of lightning. Don't forget that the sea dragon could release electricity. When the electricity hit the two of them, dozens of tentacles protruded from the sea dragon clone's claws. Each tentacle pierced deeply into the bodies of the two people. It devoured their blood. Therefore, when the two of them fell to the ground, they had already become 2 dried corpses. This scene was not detected by Han Jianxing, who was thousands of kilometers away. Otherwise, even he would be surprised. After all, he was only a level 2 Grand Desolate Master. And this creature's level was completely the same as his. And because of the advantage of physical strength, the sea dragon clone's combat strength had already surpassed his. At this time, the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect and the Heavenly Wood Sect were all panicking. Even their greatest pillar of support had been killed by this huge creature with a single claw. How could they be any better? Especially in front of this huge creature, they would feel a sense of oppression from the bottom of their hearts. This made them unable to even think of resisting. The only thing they could do now seemed to be to run. So, these 200 people immediately scattered and fled in all directions. At this time, the Sea Dragon clone did not make any more moves. When the Sea Dragon clone killed the enemy, Mo would not get kill points. He would only get kill points when he was in human form or bloodthirsty demon dragon form. So he let the Sea Dragon clone clean up the 2 Grand Desolate Masters first. He would leave the rest to him. Chapter 426. Mo first let the Azure Dragon Avatar deal with the 2 Grand Desolate Masters before flapping its wings and chasing after the Heavenly Wood Sect and Heavenly Water Sect disciples. More than 30 people were killed by the Red Flame Dragon Breath. Another Profound Ice Dragon Breath, and another 70 people were frozen into ice cubes. In the legends, these people had only heard of Ice Attribute Dragons and Fire Attribute Dragons. Ice and fire were completely incompatible. They did not expect this dragon to be able to control both ice and fire types. They could not defend against it even if they wanted to. When one used ice type to defend, it used fire type to attack. When one used fire type to defend, it used ice type to attack. In the end, these 200 people were all killed by Mo. His kill points increased once again. Kill points, 6541000. Seeing that he was just short of 300 killing points, he would be able to level up again. Mo had already thought about where he would go to get more kill points after leaving the Ancient Dragon battlefield. Naturally, he would go to the Heavenly Gold Sect, Heavenly Wood Sect, and Heavenly Water Sect. Of course, the Heavenly Fire Sect and Heavenly Earth Sect were on the same side as these 3 sections. It would be best if these 2 sects also came over to join in the Muddy Waters. Then he would be able to capture them all in one fell swoop. At this moment, the people of the 16 Serene Cloud Prefectures would never have imagined that the elite disciples of the 3 sects would be killed by a level 2 Desolate Master. At this moment, only 1/3 of the elite disciples of the 3 sects were left. Mo was not in a hurry to leave the Ancient Dragon battlefield to find them. Instead, he returned to the 4th district. Logically speaking, risk and reward went hand in hand. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. In the Ancient Dragon battlefield, the 4th district was the most dangerous, so the reward would definitely be the greatest. He was going to spend some time to investigate this place thoroughly. While Mo was investigating the 4th district of the Ancient Dragon battlefield, in the Heavenly Wood Sect and the Heavenly Water Sect, after sending out the news, their elders had already arrived at the teleportation hall in the sect. They were waiting for the sect leader and the rest to return. However, after half an hour, not only did the sect leader not return, but even the disciples did not return. This caused these elders to be secretly anxious. First elder, why aren't the sect leader and the rest back yet? Do you think? A disciple asked. Shut up. The great elder lectured, you've cultivated for so many years, yet you're still so impetuous. How can you accomplish great things? The disciple quickly lowered his head and said, yes. The great elder continued, in short, we've already sent out the message. When the sect master and the others will return will depend on the decision made at the last minute. Is this something a junior like you can guess? The disciple lowered his head again. Yes. After another 3 hours, the great elder began to feel anxious. Logically speaking, even if the sect master and the others weren't coming back for the time being, they should have at least sent him a message. But 3 hours had passed and there was still no news. Could it be that something had really happened? However, as the Grand Elder, when the sect master was not around, he had to hold down the entire sect. Naturally, he could not reveal his thoughts. When the disciples beside him saw that the Great Elder was able to keep his composure, they could not help but secretly admire him. As expected of the Great Elder, he could still maintain his composure under such circumstances. If it were him, he would have panicked long ago. It seemed that he still had to learn more from the Great Elder in order to improve. 2 hours later, the Great Elder had already begun to walk. In fact, he also wanted to contact the sect master and ask what was going on. However, the sect master hated people who restricted his freedom the most. Even asking would infuriate him. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the sect master would not say that he was going out for a few hours. Even if he was out for a few days, he did not dare to ask. So until now, he did not dare to send a message to the sect master to ask about the situation. When the disciple beside him saw this, he was puzzled. Could it be that the great elder could not keep his composure anymore? He could not help but ask, "Great elder, what are you?" The great elder glared at the disciple and scolded, "I ate a little too much just now. I need to exercise to digest." The disciple quickly lowered his head. Yes. He also blamed himself in his heart. He still had to learn more from the great elder. After another 2 hours, seeing that the sky was already dark, the great elder could no longer hold it in. Fine, let the sect master be angry. He directly dialed the number of the sect master's multifunctional watch. The disciple beside him was puzzled. "Great elder, didn't you say to stay calm?" The great elder glared at the disciple and said in his heart, "The sky is already dark. Stay calm, my asterisk." But on the surface he replied, "It's about time." The disciple pondered for a moment before nodding. Soon the great elder had already dialed the number. However, after a full minute, there was still no reply from the other side. Then he dialed a second time, a third time, and a fourth time. Still there was no reply. His heart could not help but thump. Next, he dialed the number of the second elder and the third elder who had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. However, there was still no reply. The great elder panicked even more. Could it be that the sect master and the others had really met with trouble at the ancient dragon battlefield? Now, the second elder and the third elder had followed the sect master to the ancient dragon battlefield. He, the great elder, was the only one left in the sect. If something really happened, he did not even have a single person to discuss it with. If he really wanted to discuss it, he could only discuss it with the Heavenly Gold sect and the Heavenly Water sect. Thinking of this, he wanted to call the Heavenly Water sect's great elder. However, before he could do so, the Heavenly Water sect's great elder called. "What's the situation at your Heavenly Wood sect? Has everyone returned?" The great elder's heart thumped again. He asked in return, "What about you?" The Heavenly Water sect's great elder sounded anxious. "No, not a single one has returned. The sect master did not return either. Also, we can't contact anyone." The great elder's expression turned even more solemn. "Same for us." With this, both sides could guess what had happened. The two great elders felt their legs turn to jelly. Their sect masters were both level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. If the other disciples died, they still had a chance to rise again. However, if something were to happen to the two sect masters, then their two sects would probably decline from then on. Then what do we do now? The Heavenly Water sect's great elder asked. The Heavenly Wood sect's great elder pondered for a long time before saying, "Wait here. I'll go to your sect and discuss this matter properly." The Heavenly Water sect's great elder nodded. "Okay, I'll wait." It seemed that this was the only way now. Turning back, the Heavenly Wood sect's great elder said to the disciple beside him, "Call back all the elite and core disciples who are still outside the sect. Close the gates tightly." The disciple beside him also knew that this was a serious matter. He hurriedly lowered his head and replied, "Yes." At the same time, Mo continued to investigate the ancient dragon battlefield. Chapter 427. While the Heavenly Wood sect and Heavenly Water sect were panicking, Mo had already returned to his human form and was continuing his exploration of the ancient dragon battlefield. There were no more evil dragons here, so there was no danger. Mo was searching every inch of the battlefield. Han Jianxing, who was over 100 kilometers away, was also doing the same. However, his focus was on Mo. Although he was surprised that Mo had single-handedly exterminated all the evil dragons, he knew that Mo had relied on the saber in his hand to do so. But now, Mo was actually able to transform into a dragon. This was far beyond his expectations. How could he not be surprised that such a mysterious creature like the dragon could actually appear in the real world? As far as the people of the Flaming Origin continent knew, the dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. They only existed in the history books and legends. Who would have thought that this fellow could actually transform into a dragon? Even someone as experienced and knowledgeable as Han Jianxing couldn't help but be shocked. Mo, who had transformed into a dragon, had single-handedly killed over 100 level 7 and level 8 desolate hunters with the power of a single dragon. This truly showed how terrifying a dragon's combat strength was. Mo searched the 4th district for a full 5 hours before finally discovering something. The 5th district looked like a plain, but in fact it was more than 10 meters below the ground. In fact, it was all underground caves. The largest of these caves were 1,000 meters long and 1,000 meters wide. The smaller ones were only 10 meters long and 10 meters wide. Moreover, each of these underground caves had many holes. These holes extended in all directions, connecting all the caves. No one knew how big the underground cavern was or if there were any good things inside. Even though Mo Sure had the strength of a level 7 psychic master, it was impossible for him to explore all of these caves in a short period of time. However, Mo Sure had created 100 doppelgangers that entered the caves through different holes. The doppelgangers spread out in all directions to explore the caves. Although the strength of these clones was not as strong as his main body, they were still very strong. However, the doppelganger's Draconic will had also reached level 5, allowing it to scout out a range of 250 kilometers. Therefore, with 100 virus clones, the efficiency of the investigation was very impressive. 2 hours later they finally found something. In one of the caves, a corpse was found, the corpse of a dragon. When Mo Sure passed through more than 50 underground tunnels and arrived in front of the giant dragon's corpse, he couldn't help but feel excited when he saw the 300-meter-long giant dragon's corpse. After all, this was his first time seeing a real dragon. Although it was a corpse, the dragon's scales were dark red in color. The entire body of the giant dragon was perfectly preserved. The dragon's scales, head, claws, fangs, and spikes were all perfectly preserved. Most importantly, the dragon's corpse did not show any signs of drying up. It didn't look like it was dead at all. It looked more like it was asleep. Even though Mo Sure was a giant dragon standing in front of this giant dragon, he couldn't help but feel a sense of oppression. Mo Sure couldn't help but exclaim in his heart, was this a real giant dragon? It seemed that compared to a real giant dragon he still lacked a sense of dominance and deterrence. However, Mo Sure couldn't be blamed for this. It hadn't been long since he evolved into a giant dragon. It was impossible for him to have the dominance and deterrence of a giant dragon in such a short time. This was like a monkey that had just evolved into a human. He definitely couldn't get rid of the various monkey habits for the time being. While exclaiming in amazement, Mo Sure began to use his draconic will to investigate this giant dragon in detail. Being immortal after tens of thousands of years, there must be something special about this giant dragon. Just over 10 minutes later, Mo Sure discovered something strange. He saw that there was a piece of bone about 1 meter long on the spine of this giant dragon. This piece of bone was different from the rest of the bones. It was obviously connected later. In terms of color and shape, it didn't look like something this giant dragon should have. However, looking at that piece of bone, Mo Sure felt that it was somewhat familiar. Soon he reacted. The incomplete dragon vein. Previously, he had obtained a piece of incomplete dragon vein. The shape and color of this small piece of dragon bone looked similar to that of the incomplete dragon vein. This discovery made Mo Sure's heart tremble. Because according to the previous legends, the incomplete dragon vein was obtained from the ancient dragon battlefield. There was a big secret on the incomplete dragon vein. If he could mend the incomplete dragon vein, he would discover this big secret. Thinking of this, Mo Sure moved his mind and took out the incomplete dragon vein from the miniature world. He saw that this incomplete dragon vein and the incomplete dragon vein in this giant dragon's body could be combined into a complete dragon bone. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. The incomplete dragon vein was finally going to be completed. He immediately wanted to use his sharp claws to cut open the giant dragon's body and take out the incomplete dragon vein. However, a moment later, he realized that his sharp claws couldn't cut open the giant dragon's body. Even if he activated the invisible force, he could only leave a shallow wound on the surface of the giant dragon's body. Even though it had been dead for tens of thousands of years, the scales on the surface of the giant dragon's body were still terrifyingly hard. Mo Sure had no choice but to take out the dragon's salure. He stabbed at the giant dragon's back. Puff! The dragon's salure easily pierced through the giant dragon's scales. It pierced through its skin again. With a light slash. Swish! A 5-meter-long gash was drawn out. As expected, the dragon's salure was simply made for slaying dragons. Every scale of the giant dragon was more than 10 centimeters thick. And the dragon's skin inside these scales was actually half a meter thick. It was no wonder that Mo Sure's sharp claws were unable to penetrate it. What surprised Mo Sure was that when he cut open the giant dragon's body, he discovered that there was actually blood gushing out from the wound. After 10,000 years, there was still blood in this giant dragon's body. It was as if it had just died. Mo Sure couldn't help but be a little tempted. "System, can I collect this blood?" The system replied, "Although the bloodthirsty demon dragon is known as bloodthirsty, it doesn't need to absorb the blood of other giant dragons. The bloodthirsty demon dragon's evolution only requires continuous slaughter. Mosher nodded, "You're right." As he spoke, he took out 10 pure buckets, poured out the clean water inside, and collected the giant dragon's blood. Although the system said that it was useless, this was the blood of a real giant dragon after all. Perhaps it would come in handy in the future. After collecting 10 buckets of giant dragon's blood, Mosher used the dragon salure to continue expanding the wound, and slashed towards the dragon vein on the giant dragon's back. After all, the dragon vein was the most important thing right now. Chapter 428. After Mosher collected 10 buckets of dragon blood, he used the dragon-slaying saber to expand the wound to the incomplete dragon vein. After all, compared to the dragon blood, the dragon vein was more important. It wouldn't be too late to collect the dragon blood after taking out the dragon vein. Soon he used the dragon-slaying saber to cut open the flesh inside and found the incomplete dragon vein. This incomplete dragon vein was pure black, completely different from the other bones of the dragon. Mosher used the dragon-slaying saber to cut off the dragon bones at the two ends of the dragon vein and took out the incomplete dragon vein. At this moment, a scene that he had never expected occurred. After losing the incomplete dragon vein, the giant dragon's corpse quickly shriveled up. The blood in its body also directly vaporized. In just half a minute, the huge dragon's corpse shriveled into a mummy. It was even worse than a mummy because the bones in its body had also turned into powder. Mosher couldn't help but be stunned. He secretly regretted it. If he had known this would happen, he would have collected more dragon blood just now. However, looking at the 10 buckets of dragon blood in the plastic bucket, Mosher was still quite satisfied. In the legends of the Flaming Land, a drop of dragon blood could cause a catastrophe in the cultivation world. But now Mosher had a total of 10 buckets. Now he was truly awesome. Next, Mosher looked at the 2 incomplete dragon veins in his hands. He tried to put the 2 incomplete dragon veins together. However, after trying, he realized that he couldn't put them together at all. He kept feeling that something was missing. It turned out that each of these 2 incomplete dragon veins was only 1/3 of a complete dragon vein. If he wanted to obtain the complete dragon vein, he still needed to find the last 1/3. Mosher couldn't help but feel like he had F***ket up. Helpless, he could only place his hopes on signing in. Perhaps he could sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. System, sign in. The system's voice sounded in time as usual. Frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location: Ancient Dragon Battlefield, Underground Dragon Cave. Sign in reward: Dragon Binding Rope. Dragon Binding Rope? Mosher frowned slightly. He was a little disappointed that he couldn't sign in for the last 1/3 of the dragon vein. He focused his attention on the dragon binding rope in his backpack. The dragon binding rope looked like an ordinary iron chain. There was nothing special about it. Dragon binding rope, specially crafted to bind dragons. It can completely withstand the enormous power of the giant dragon. While binding the giant dragon, it can release neurotoxins that suppress the giant dragon's power. At the same time, it can prevent the giant dragon from releasing its energy. After reading the description of the dragon binding rope, Mosher's brows relaxed. Being able to bind a dragon was indeed very impressive. However, the system gave him the dragon slaughtering saber and the dragon binding rope. Would he have to be enemies with the dragon clan in the future? But it didn't matter. The bloodthirsty demon dragon had long since become the enemy of all dragons. Thinking of this, Mosher's heart actually gave birth to a trace of anticipation. He was looking forward to the day when he could fight against the entire dragon tribe with his own power. Of course, this was the bloodthirsty demon dragon's mentality. As for the current stage, Mosher was still developing as wretchedly as possible. Before clashing with the dragon clan, he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Following that, Mosher carefully searched the entire underground dragon cave a few more times, but he didn't find anything else. Only then did he teleport and arrive on the ground. Looking at his kill points, 6541000, he only needed 300 more kill points to level up again. Where could he get the kill points? That was naturally the Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water sects. Of course, he had to return to the Flaming Beginning continent first. Thinking of this, with a thought, he took out the wormhole teleportation device. He pressed the teleportation button. In the next moment, his body turned into a blue and white ball of light and disappeared from the ancient dragon battlefield. Not long after he left, a 5-meter-long giant sword quickly descended from the sky. On the giant sword was the bearded Han Jianxing. He closed his eyes slightly and felt for a moment. Finally, he opened his eyes and looked at the ground. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the ground and look into the depths of the ground. After a moment he slowly said, "As expected, you still couldn't escape this calamity." It turned out that Han Jianxing had long known that there was a giant dragon corpse underground. He also knew that there was a dragon vein in the dragon's corpse. Years ago, when he first came to the ancient dragon battlefield, he had brought his wife with him. At that time he had discovered the dragon vein. In order to obtain the dragon vein, he had entered the underground dragon cavern alone. Because the underground dragon cavern was too dangerous, he had asked his wife to stay on the surface. But who would have thought that this parting would be an eternal farewell? When he was fighting the evil spirits in the underground dragon cavern, he suddenly had a bad premonition. He hurried back to his wife's side, only to find that she had already collapsed in a pool of blood. He was extremely sorrowful. After burying his wife, he stood guard here for a full 3 years. No one knew how he had spent these 3 years. 3 years later he returned to the flaming beginning continent. He found the culprit who had killed his wife. He killed his way to the culprit's sect. In the end, 19 sects that were implicated in this matter were annihilated. Within these sects, there were a total of 32 Grand Desolate Master experts. But they were all killed by him alone. Since then Han Jianxing's name had spread far and wide. But because of his wife's death, Han Jianxing was disheartened. Apart from raising his daughter, he no longer had the desire to reach a higher realm. As for the dragon vein that he had almost found, he no longer had the heart to look for it. Over the years, he had seen many experts in the ancient dragon battlefield who had died in the 4th district in search of the dragon vein. He had been watching coldly from the side. In his opinion, other than himself, no one else could take the dragon vein away. But now Immortality had taken it away. Could it be that he was about to witness the rise of a legend in his life? Or was he going to witness the birth of a peerless demon? This kid didn't seem like a bad person. But when it came to killing people, his viciousness was absolutely shocking. Whether he became a legend or a devil, it was all up to him. As for whether he should stop him or not, Han Jianxing had no intention of doing so. From the moment his wife died, his heart had died. In this world he cared about no one other than his daughter. Whether Han Jianxing became a legend or a demon, it had nothing to do with him. Thinking of this, he tilted the wine pot in his hand and spilled half a circle on the ground. Farewell. Then he tilted his head back and gulped down a few more mouthfuls of wine. He leaped onto the giant sword and flew back to his wife's grave. At this time, Immortality had already returned to the first hunting island. The coordinates of his wormhole teleportation device were on the first hunting island. Chapter 429. Immortality returned to Hunting Island number 1. He planned to take a short rest here before heading to Skygold Sect, Skywood Sect and Skywater Sect. Everyone on Hunting Island number 1 was excited to hear that Immortality had returned. They all came to welcome him. After Immortality rested for a night, Guojutao came to report early the next morning. In the base, there are more than 30,000 people who have broken through to the level of hunter. It is estimated that in 3 years at most, all the people in our base will be able to break through to become hunters. Guojutao said with exultation. When Immortality brought these people from Earth, Immortality was the only one who had become a hunter. Most of them were zombie hunters, and even grand hunters were rare, let alone scavenger hunters. In less than 2 years, there were more than 30,000 people who had become hunters. This was all thanks to the Dragon Palace. However, Immortality still felt that it was a little too slow. He was now in contact with the top 100 forces in the 16 states of Ghost City. Among these forces, the weakest ones were hunters. Each force had at least 20 to 30 hunters. Large sects like the Skygold sect had hundreds of desolate hunters. In comparison, the power of Dragon Palace was too weak. It seemed that he had to strengthen the construction of Dragon Palace as soon as possible to improve the strength of the people in Dragon Palace. Thinking of improving strength, Immortality could not help but think of the dragon blood he had obtained before. If he distributed the dragon blood to these people, would their strength be greatly improved? Of course, the dragon blood could not be directly absorbed by these people. The energy contained in the dragon blood was far from what these people could accept. Therefore, the dragon blood had to be diluted to the extent that their bodies could bear it. It should be known that before Immortality had absorbed the dragon's blood, he had been injected with countless enhancers and consumed countless body modification fluids. Only then could he directly devour the dragon's blood. Thinking of this, Immortality went to find Guojutao. He took out a bucket of dragon blood. Seeing that Immortality filled the bucket with bright red liquid, Guojutao could not help but ask in confusion, Mr. Mo, this is? Mo sure did not answer directly. He took out a small bottle that was 5 centimeters tall and poured some water into it. 10,000 times diluted with water? Or 100,000 times diluted with water? Distribute it to everyone. Guo Jitao was speechless. As it turned out, there was no accurate number. Mo sure added, before you distribute it to everyone, let's find a few people with higher realms and strength to test. Guo Jitao had never doubted Mo sure's words. He immediately called a few people over and diluted the blood-red liquid. Then, he distributed it to several level 5 scavengers. After the level 5 hunters took it, they felt a hot energy flowing through their bodies. They were going to cultivate immediately. If they did not cultivate and circulate their energy, their bodies would most likely explode. On the second day, both of them leveled up 3 times. Furthermore, the effects of the medicine had yet to fully take effect. In the following days, the two of them improved extremely quickly. Seeing that the effects of the medicine were so good, everyone became excited. However, these 2 level 5 hunters needed to quickly circulate their energy so that their bodies would not explode. Therefore, the hunters would not be able to use it directly. Guo Jitao could only let people divide the medicine into several batches. One batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 10 times and given to the scavengers. The other batch was diluted with water at a ratio of 100 times and given to the grand hunters. And so on. Finally, Mo sure let Guo Jitao and the others, whose realms were fixed at level 1 scavengers, take the dragon blood as well. As a result, they broke through one after another. This made them very happy. They thought that their cultivation would be fixed at level 1 scavengers for the rest of their lives. They did not expect that there would be a day when they would break through. The blood-red liquid that Mr. Mo brought back for them was really amazing. Moreover, this kind of liquid was not a small bottle but a plastic bucket of pure water, which was filled to the brim. In other words, this liquid was enough for everyone in the base to use for a very long time. It could be said that their path of advancement in the future would be smooth sailing. How could this not make them excited? If they knew that there was not 1 bucket of this dragon blood but 10 buckets, what would they think? In the next 5 days, more than 20 people in the Dragon Palace broke through and became scavengers. At this rate, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. It should be known that even a large sect like the Heavenly Gold sect would need at least 200 years to cultivate more than 100 scavengers. Now, the Dragon Palace could cultivate more than 100 scavengers within a month. This speed was really exaggerated. Of course, Mo sure also gave Happy dragon blood. However, Happy's body was like a rock and could not absorb the dragon blood at all. This made Mo sure speechless. Was it so difficult to become an oracle? While everyone in the base was excited about being able to quickly improve their strength, an uninvited guest came. This person was none other than the female manager of the 10th hunting island. When Mo sure went to the 10th hunting ground previously, he had seen this person in the hall of the 10th hunting island. Moreover, this person was not weak. She was a level 7 scavenger. This female manager was slightly plump. She had shoulder-length hair. The way she walked was like a penguin, swaying from side to side. She entered the first hunting island. While looking around, she secretly estimated the strength of the first hunting island. In her opinion, the strength of hunting island number 1 was far inferior to that of hunting island number 10. However, after entering the first hunting island, she found that it was just an old impression. The current hunting island number 1 had changed a lot compared to before. Especially in the first hunting island, there were more than 30 people who were training. Their auras had reached the level of scavengers. A poor place like the first hunting island could produce scavengers. Moreover, there were so many of them in one go. This really surprised her a little. However, she soon put away her surprise. She came with a mission today. Even if there were 200 scavengers on the first hunting island, she had to complete the mission, not to mention that there were more than 20 scavengers on the first hunting island. Thinking of this, she straightened her plump back. She came to the workshop where Mo sure was. She glanced around the workshop and finally fixed her eyes on Mo sure. She looked at Mo sure up and down. She was a little surprised. The owner of the first hunting island was a little young. The two did not exchange any pleasantries. The woman said directly, "You are the owner of the first hunting island, right?" Mo sure nodded. The woman continued, "We suspect that you are related to the murder of the Heavenly Gold sect disciple Bufan. Please come with me to assist in the investigation." Chapter 430. The slightly plump woman went straight to the point. "We suspect that you are related to the murder of Bufan, a disciple of the Sky Gold sect. Please follow me back to the 10th hunting island to assist in the investigation. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present was stunned. The 10th hunting island was not to be trifled with, and the Sky Gold sect was a colossus in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect? This was going to be troublesome. Of course, as members of the Dragon Palace, they had to protect the Dragon King. Guojutao smiled apologetically. Manager Liu, you must have made a mistake. The Sky Gold sect is the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. How could our island owner? Speaking up to here, Mo Shi waved his hand to stop Guojutao. Then he looked at the woman with a smile. He said slowly, "That's right. I killed him." As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. The members of the Dragon Palace knew that Mo Shi might have killed the disciple. However, they did not expect Mo Shi to admit it so easily. What kind of place was the Sky Gold sect? It was the boss of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Offending the Sky Gold sect was equivalent to offending the Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect. These three sects were the top three forces in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud. Mr. Mo actually admitted it without even thinking about it. This was too bold of him. The woman was obviously stunned as well. She was expecting the island owner of the first hunting island to quibble. She was very experienced in dealing with people like him. She had thought of dozens of explanations and methods to deal with Mo Shi's quibbling. Therefore she came here with a well-thought-out plan. However, she did not expect Mo Shi to admit it directly. This caught her off guard. However, since he had admitted it, things would be easier. Since you've admitted it, it's even easier. You don't have to go to the 10th hunting island. Just follow me to the Sky Gold sect. I'll hand you over to them. The woman's expression and tone were icy cold. The disappearance of the Sky Gold sect disciple on the 10th hunting island had nothing to do with them. After all, they had signed a life and death agreement before entering the hunting ground. However, the Heavenly Gold sect was a massive force. If they really wanted to say that they were related to the 10th hunting ground, the 10th hunting ground wouldn't dare to say anything. Moreover, if the 10th hunting ground could make use of this opportunity to establish a relationship with the Sky Gold sect, it would be greatly beneficial to the future development of the 10th hunting ground. Therefore, when the owner of the 10th hunting ground learned of this matter, he immediately ordered his men to bring Mo Shi back for interrogation. If it was really Mo Shi's doing, he would hand him over to the Sky Gold sect. Now that Mo Shi had admitted it, they would bring him directly to the Sky Gold sect. Seeing this, Guojulong wanted to step forward and stop them. Mo Shi smiled faintly and said, "I will go to the Heavenly Gold sect. However, I have to rephrase my words." The woman was surprised again. This guy killed a disciple of the Sky Gold sect and still wanted to go to the Sky Gold sect? He was not playing by the rules at all. She snorted coldly. "No matter what you say, you have to follow me to the Heavenly Gold sect today." Mo Shi smiled faintly and continued, "In a few days I will kill my way to the Sky Gold sect and wipe them all out." After hearing Mo Shi's words, the surrounding disciples of Dragon Palace all looked at Mo Shi in disbelief. No matter how much they trusted Mo Shi, how could Dragon Palace be compared with the Sky Gold sect? Not to mention killing his way to the Sky Gold sect and wiping them all out. The woman was also stunned by Mo Shi's words. Was this guy too arrogant or crazy? He looked at Mo Shi from head to toe, and then looked at Mo Shi's workshop. She sneered and said, "Ha, just with your number one hunting island?" Mo Shi shook his head and said, "Just with me." Ha! The woman could not help but laugh. "Young man, you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I admit that you have some strength. However, you want to challenge the entire Sky Gold sect by yourself? Do you think you are Han Jianxing?" Just as she said this, her multifunctional watch rang. The woman answered the video call. It was the owner of the number 10 hunting island. The woman quickly stopped smiling and said respectfully, "Hello, island owner." The owner of the number 10 hunting island asked, "Have you arrived at the number 1 hunting island?" The woman glanced at Mo Shi and replied, "Yes, I have found the owner of the number 1 hunting island and he has admitted his crime. I plan to take him to the Sky Gold sect now." The owner of the number 10 hunting island suddenly changed his expression and said, "Don't go to the Sky Gold sect. Come back right now." The woman was stunned. "Island owner, what about me? Just come back when I tell you to. Cut the crap." The woman was stunned again. Why did the island owner suddenly become so fierce? He was not like this before. "Okay, island owner, I'll come back right now." As for the owner of the number 1 hunting island, the owner of the number 10 hunting island said, "Don't worry about it. Come back right now." The woman frowned slightly. She had rushed here for half a day, and now she had come back empty-handed? The island owner did not hide from the others and said directly, "According to the news I just received, the Skygold sect has met with a great disaster. They lost 2/3 of their elite disciples in the ancient dragon battlefield. The Heavenly Wood sect and the Heavenly Water sect also lost 2/3 of their elite disciples. And their sect masters are still uncontactable. It is very likely that they have all died in the ancient dragon battlefield." Hearing this, the woman was shocked. What was going on? The owner of the number 10 hunting island continued. According to reliable sources, the owner of the number 1 hunting island has been to the ancient dragon battlefield before. When the woman heard this, her expression immediately changed. She took 2 steps back subconsciously and looked at Immortality. No matter how stupid she was, she could connect the dots based on the news that the owner of the number 1 hunting island might have something to do with this. 2/3 of the elite disciples of the 3 sects were hundreds of level 5 and above hunters. There were even 2 grand desolate masters who did not return. But only the owner of the number 1 hunting island had returned. What did this mean? In addition, the owner of the number 1 hunting island had said that he was going to kill his way to the Skygold sect and wipe them out. She guessed at a result that was unthinkable. If she heard someone else say this 2 minutes ago, she would only find it funny and think that the person was crazy. But now, things were developing in an even more ridiculous direction. What she had seen and heard with her own eyes was all true. One could imagine how much of a psychological impact this would have on her. Her face turned pale and sweat started to form on her forehead. She had looked down on this small island and the owner of the number 1 hunting island. Now it seemed that she was really digging her own grave. Digging her own grave. She could not help but take another step back. She said incoherently to Immortality, Hug. Immortality sneered, "You want to hug me now? It's too late." Chapter 431. After the woman realized that everything was done by Immortality, she was no longer as arrogant as before. Her face was pale and she subconsciously took 2 steps back. She stuttered, Hug. Now you want to hug? It's too late." Immortality sneered. In his right hand, a genetic weapon had already condensed. It was a huge axe with a very flashy design. However, Immortality's genetic weapon was completely different from the Flame Dragon axe. At this moment, the axe was completely black. In the middle of the axe was a huge skull. The eyes of the skull were flashing with a fiery red light. The handle of the axe was in the shape of a human leg bone. The entire axe gave off a demonic aura. Immortality's entire body was filled with a bloodthirsty aura. Seeing this, the woman was even more frightened. "I'm sorry. As she spoke, she saw that Immortality had already raised his axe. She quickly turned around and fled. However, just as she turned around, she felt a chill on her neck. She felt that she was flying. She saw that everything around her was moving away from her. Even her body was moving away from her. It turned out that she was not flying. Instead, it was her head that was flying. At this point, this arrogant woman could no longer be arrogant. Guojutao and the others beside Immortality were shocked when they saw this scene. This woman was a level 5 desolate hunter. However, she was killed by Mr. Imo in 1 move. Mr. Imo had only been in the ancient dragon battlefield for 2 months, and his strength was already so strong. Immortality kept his genetic weapon and turned to Guojutao. "Guard the base well. I'm going out." Guojutao quickly nodded. "Yes." After speaking, he raised his head. Immortality had already disappeared. Guojutao looked at the corpse lying in a pool of blood and could not help but sigh. Mr. Imo was definitely the most talented person he had ever seen in his life. There was no other. Not only was his leveling speed terrifying, but his combat strength was also terrifying. He was only a level 2 desolate hunter, but he was able to kill a level 5 desolate hunter who was 3 levels above him. This was just the tip of the iceberg. The Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood, and Heavenly Water, the 3 colossi of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, had 2/3 of their elite disciples. Even the sect masters of the Heavenly Wood and Heavenly Water sects, existences at the Grand Desolate Master Realm, had been killed by Mr. Imo. This was almost like killing an enemy who was a whole realm higher. If it were anyone else, it would be unimaginable. But Mr. Imo did it. This was truly terrifying. With such a Mr. Imo, why would the Dragon Palace not be able to grow stronger? Hunting Island number 10. After the island master finished his conversation with the woman, he felt uneasy. He called the security chief of Hunting Island number 10 and said, "Ask all the hunters outside to come back. Also, Ask some mercenaries to come back. The security captain was somewhat puzzled. Island Master, we have more than 100 desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island. It is more than enough to protect the entire hunting island. Could it be that the enemy is a Grand Desolate Master? The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. Not enough. Hire more mercenaries. Then, how much? The owner of the 10th hunting island replied, hire all the desolate hunters. The more the better. The security captain was even more surprised. Desolate hunters are very expensive. The owner of the 10th hunting island shook his head. Do it. The security captain did not know what kind of crisis the island was facing. But he still nodded his head doubtfully. Yes, Island Master. At the same time in the Heavenly Water Sect. After the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect returned, the entire passageway leading up and down the mountain had been sealed. The teleportation hall had also been closed. Even a bird could not enter the Heavenly Water Sect. At this moment, without the sect master, only a few elders were left to manage the situation. Elders, should we activate the protective mountain array? A disciple asked. The fourth elder shook his head. The protective mountain array consumes too much energy. If we can avoid activating it, we should try not to. It won't be too late to activate it when the enemy invades. Their protective mountain array had been set up by their sect master at a great cost. It could withstand the attack of a level 1 Grand Desolate Master. And such a level of protective mountain array consumed a terrifying amount of origin crystals. Every minute it was activated, it would consume tens of thousands of origin crystals. Even though the Heavenly Water Sect was the third largest sect in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, they only had less than 10 million origin crystals in their storage. How could they withstand such a torment? Hence, unless it was a critical moment, they would not dare to activate the protective mountain array. The fourth elder continued, increase the number of people patrolling day and night. Once this person appears, alert immediately. As he spoke, he turned on his multifunction watch and projected M.O. Sher's face. Everyone firmly imprinted M.O. Sher's ordinary-looking face in their minds. Half an hour after the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect became nervous, a figure suddenly appeared in the Heavenly Water Sect. This person was none other than M.O. Sher. The disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect had underestimated M.O. Sher's teleportation ability. Hence, they did not have time to activate the protective mountain array. The moment M.O. Sher appeared, his dragon consciousness spread out. Boom 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 boom. Instantly, all the disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect who were below the level of Desolate Hunter exploded. It was like setting off firecrackers during the New Year. When their bodies exploded, the blood mist that rose up was like the smoke from setting off firecrackers. In the Heavenly Water Sect, a Desolate Hunter had just raised his cup to drink water. Suddenly, boom, not far away, a level 10 Desolate Hunter immediately exploded. The Desolate Hunter was shocked. Oh no, there's an enemy attack. Just as he opened his mouth, boom 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 boom, the bodies of the other disciples beside him also exploded one after another. In just a few seconds, all the Desolate Hunters around him had exploded into blood mist. The scene was so strange and horrifying that it was the first time he had seen something like this. The rest of the Desolate Hunters of the Heavenly Water Sect were experiencing the same thing. They could only watch helplessly as their disciples and friends exploded into a bloody mist, unable to do anything about it. As for the Desolate Hunters, they watched helplessly as their disciples exploded into blood mist. The next moment it would be their turn. They all fled in panic. But could they escape? M.O. Sher's dragon consciousness could cover a radius of 350 kilometers. Who among them could run 350 kilometers in a matter of seconds? Not a single one. When the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect saw this scene, he knew that the enemy had a powerful psyche master or even a spiritual psyche master. He could not help but feel despair. If the enemy only had a psyche master, it would be fine. If they had a spiritual psyche master, there was nothing they could do. This was because spiritual psyche masters were extremely rare. Even in the 1,000-year history of the Heavenly Water Sect, there had only been one spiritual psyche master. Now there was not even one spiritual psyche master in the sect. Chapter 432. The Heavenly Water Sect did not even have a single spiritual psyche master. The first elder of the Heavenly Water Sect was in despair. The Heavenly Water Sect currently had about 100 hunters. The remaining 100,000 people were all scavenger hunters. Under the spiritual psyche attack of a spiritual psyche master, the hunters had no chance of surviving. If all the hunters died, they would only have about 100 hunters left. In that case, the Heavenly Water Sect would have to wait for a long time before it could be revived. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water Sect soon realized that his worries were unfounded. This was because the 100 or so desolate hunters were about to die. The entire Heavenly Water Sect was about to be destroyed, so there was no need to worry about revival. In just half a minute, the 100,000 hunters of the Heavenly Water Sect had all exploded into a bloody mist. Mosher looked at the killing points in his mind. Killing points, 7831000, he frowned slightly. The hunters were really worthless. He had killed more than 100,000 hunters, but he had only obtained about 100 killing points. This meant that he could only obtain 1 killing point for every 1,000 hunters he killed. The fourth elder was a level 10 desolate hunter. Seeing that all the desolate hunter disciples had been killed, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. He was extremely furious. Under such circumstances, it was obvious that he could not escape. He ordered the hunters of the Heavenly Water Sect, "Everyone, get ready to activate the mountain-destroying formation." The Heavenly Gold Sect had a mountain-destroying formation other than the mountain protection formation. The mountain-destroying formation was equivalent to a self-destruct program. Once it exploded, the entire mountain would be razed to the ground. This was a method to perish together with the enemy. It was usually used to threaten enemies who were too powerful. The fourth elder looked at Mosher from afar. He was extremely indignant. "You killed more than 200 elite disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect, 3 of our elders, a sect leader, and more than 100,000 of our ordinary disciples. Now you still want to kill us all? If that's the case, we'll perish together with you. Once the mountain-destroying formation is activated, the entire mountain will be razed to the ground. You won't be able to escape." Mosher stopped and looked at the fourth elder. He smiled faintly. "You can try." As he spoke, he moved. Poof. A desolate hunter was pierced by his sharp claws. Poof. Another hunter's head flew into the air. Seeing this, the Qinshui sect's fourth elder roared, "Activate the mountain-destroying formation." Immediately, the elite disciples of the Heavenly Water Sect raised their right hands with bloodshot eyes. Genetic martial arts condensed in their right hands. Next, their genetic weapons lit up with red and white light. This red and white light shot out from their genetic weapons and gathered in the sky. Then, a blood-red light shield slowly formed in the sky and covered the ground. Mosher sneered when he saw this. "You want to die with me? Are you worthy?" As he spoke, his figure flashed again. Poof. A desolate hunter, who was holding an energy weapon high in the air, had his back slashed open. Chi, the other desolate hunter's entire right arm was chopped off by Mosher's sharp claws. At this moment, his entire right arm was 3 times thicker than usual. It was covered with black scales. Under the sunlight, the sharp claws at the end of the claws shone with a cold light. It looked exceptionally sharp. Shwa. A claw slashed towards a level 4 desolate hunter. That level 4 desolate hunter hurriedly raised his energy weapon and tried to block it. However, when his energy weapon met Mosher's dragon claws, it was as if he had met a high-speed train. He was immediately sent flying hundreds of meters away. He crashed through 5 walls before falling to the ground. There wasn't a single bone in his body that was in perfect condition. Mosher kept killing these desolate hunters. Not to mention those who were 1 or 2 levels higher than him. Even those who were 3 or 5 levels higher than him, or even 6 or 7 levels higher than him, were like paper under his sharp claws. And without the support of these disciples, the energy shield in the sky that was covering the ground quickly retreated. Seeing this, the fourth elder's eyes turned bloodshot. He roared, "Kid, you've gone too far." As he spoke, the energy weapon on his right arm shone brightly. The red and white light shrouded his entire body. The next moment, a red and white pillar of light shot up into the sky from his body. In the sky, the energy shield that was about to dissipate turned upside down once again. And this time the speed was more than 10 times faster than before. It turned out that the fourth elder could activate the mountain-destroying formation by himself. And the speed at which he activated it was much, much faster than when the other disciples worked together. It was just that this was at the cost of his life. And when he activated the energy shield, it could not be interrupted. Mosher saw that the energy shield was quickly descending, and his dragon claws slashed towards the fourth elder. Unexpectedly, the fourth elder's body was covered with a fiery red energy. When Mosher's dragon claws slashed on it, it was as if they were slashing on metal. It could not cause any fatal damage. The fourth elder's eyes were wide open. He laughed loudly as if he had gone crazy. Kid, when I activated the mountain-destroying formation at the cost of my life, it could not be interrupted at all. You will be buried with us, ha ha ha. Mo sure saw that the energy shield was less than 10 meters away from completely covering the entire mountain. He snorted coldly and his body suddenly changed. The bones in his body kept cracking. His body was rapidly growing. The clothes on his body were constantly making hissing sounds, as if they were bursting apart from being stretched too much. The dragon scales on his right claw also started to spread all over his body. In just a few seconds, he had turned into a giant dragon that was more than 120 meters long. When everyone saw this, they were all dumbfounded. Giant dragon. There really is a giant dragon. The giant dragons did not go extinct. The fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect was also in a daze. The knowledge that he had received since he was young did not know that the giant dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. And based on the current situation, whether it was now or in the future, there would not be any giant dragons in this world. But now, a living giant dragon was standing in front of him. This was a strong blow to his worldview. The giant dragons had not gone extinct. The giant dragons really existed. Mo sure turned into a giant dragon. He felt that his body was full of surging power. He wanted to roar to the sky. But this was not the ancient battlefield of the giant dragons. If he was too high profile, it would inevitably cause a lot of unnecessary trouble. So Mo sure suppressed the urge to roar. He flapped his wings and flew towards the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect. Faced with the attack of a giant creature that was more than 100 meters long, the fourth elder panicked. Think about it. No matter who it was, how could anyone not panic when faced with a giant dragon that was more than 100 meters long and whose head was bigger than a house? Chapter 433. Mo sure transformed into a 100-meter-long dragon and flew towards the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect. Although the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect was prepared to die, he still panicked in the face of such a huge monster. He wanted to turn around and escape. It was like a person who wanted to commit suicide, but faced with the sudden appearance of a giant python, he would instinctively feel fear. He was not afraid of death, but he was afraid of the giant python. However, the fourth elder of the Heavenly Water sect could not back down now. He was in an invincible state when he was burning his life to activate the mountain-destroying array. However, he could not move or stop. Once he moved or stopped, he would immediately explode and die. He could only suppress the fear in his heart and hope that he was in an invincible state. He hoped that the dragon would not be able to hurt him when he was in an invincible state. Rumble, just as he was thinking about this. Mo sure's right claw had already grabbed him. Even the ground under his feet, which was more than 100 square meters, was shattered by his claw. As for the red and white energy surrounding the first elder of the Heavenly Gold sect, it could not stop Mo sure at all. What a joke. Mo sure was in his dragon form. The fourth elder's invincible state was only relative to humans. Hence, his invincible state could not stop Mo sure. He was crushed into meat paste by Mo sure's claw. As soon as the fourth elder died, the huge energy shield that was about to cover the entire mountain dissipated in the sky. When the other elders saw this, they looked at the giant dragon that Mo sure had transformed into and spat out a ball of flame energy. More than 50 desolate hunters screamed in pain in the flames. They were filled with despair. Facing such a powerful creature, they couldn't even bring themselves to perish together with it. They could only watch as it massacred the last few elite disciples of the Heavenly Water sect. However, these elders did not have to despair very soon. They would not feel despair again in their lives. This was because Mo sure's sharp claws had already reached their heads. In less than 10 minutes, the Heavenly Water sect, which was ranked third in the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, was destroyed by Mo sure. From the looks of it, the so-called rankings and the so-called forces were worthless in the face of absolute strength. After wiping out all the disciples of the Heavenly Water sect, Mo sure searched through their stores to see if there was anything of value. In the end, he discovered that there were over 1 million origin crystals in the Heavenly Water sect. They could be used as currency on the Flaming Dawn continent. Generally speaking, electronic currency was used when purchasing ordinary items. However, if one wanted to purchase some extremely precious items, they would have to use crystal source stones. There were already quite a lot of 10,000 crystal origin stones. Mo sure transformed into his human form and took out a set of clean clothes from the space. Transforming felt good for a moment, and after that he changed his clothes. It was indeed a little awkward. After changing his clothes, Mo Shi stored the source crystals in his micro-world. Then, with a thought, he disappeared from the spot. At this point, this great sect that had prospered for thousands of years had been destroyed by Mo Shi alone. 10 minutes later, Mo Shi's figure appeared in the Skywood sect again. The Heavenly Wood sect's situation was similar to the Heavenly Water sect's. Therefore, the process of the two sects' destruction was very similar. Both were killed by Mo Shi's dragon wolf first. Then, when they wanted to activate the protective formation, they discovered that Mo Shi was already in the mountains. Then Mo Shi transformed into a huge dragon and started a massacre. Therefore, the Skywood sect was destroyed. In just an hour, the second and third ranked sects of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud continent had been destroyed. Then, Mo Shi put away the source crystals in the Skywood sect and disappeared again. At the same time in the Skygold sect. They still had a level 1 spiritual psyche master and 2 level 1 desolate masters. Therefore they weren't particularly panicked. However, that didn't mean that they didn't take it seriously. In the Skygold sect's meeting hall, the sect master, Grand Elder, and the other 5 elders all had solemn expressions. This time we lost 2/3 of our elite disciples. The sect's strength will definitely be greatly reduced. We just received news that the Heavenly Water sect was destroyed half an hour ago. The person who destroyed the Heavenly Water sect was that Mo Shi. The Great Elder gnashed his teeth in anger. If there was anyone who hated Mo Shi the most, it was naturally the Grand Elder. Firstly, his illegitimate son had been killed by Mo Shi. Naturally he hated Mo Shi. Secondly, he had brought so many elite disciples with him, but they had all died in the ancient battlefield of dragons because of Mo Shi. Of course, he didn't know that those disciples were actually killed by Mo Shi. However, if it weren't for the fact that they wanted to kill Mo Shi, those disciples wouldn't have entered the 4th district and wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Therefore, this debt naturally had to be placed on Mo Shi's head. He didn't think that if he hadn't taken the risk to bring his disciples into the 4th district to kill Mo Shi, those disciples wouldn't have been surrounded by the huge dragon evil spirits. The sect master asked, the Heavenly Water sect was destroyed by that kid alone? He felt that it was a little ridiculous to ask this question. A sect ranked 3rd in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud had been destroyed by a mere level 2 desolate hunter. Even novels wouldn't dare to brag like this. But now, such a thing had actually happened. How could he not feel that it was ridiculous? The elder who reported nodded. I just saw the news. It was sent by a disciple we sent to the Heavenly Water sect for an exchange. It's been half an hour. The sect leader furrowed his brows. This brat is actually so strong that he can single-handedly destroy an entire sect? The Grand Elder said, previously it was our Skygold, Skywood, and Skywater that had a grudge with that kid. Now that Skywood and Skywater no longer have a Grand Desolate Master overseeing them, that kid's next target is likely to be the Skywood sect. Everyone nodded. The sect master hurriedly said, contact the Skywood sect immediately and tell them to make preparations. The Grand Elder nodded and immediately dialed the Skywood sect's Grand Elder's number on his multifunctional watch. After a minute there was no answer. He frowned slightly and then dialed the Skywood sect's second Elder's number. However, after another minute there was still no answer. Then he called the other higher-ups of the Skywood sect, but there was still no answer. At this moment it wasn't just him. Everyone's expression turned ugly. Since so many higher-ups of the Skywood sect didn't answer their calls, it was obvious that something had happened. The entire conference hall was silent. After a full 5 minutes, the Skygold sect master finally spoke. It seems that something has happened to the Skywood sect. Notify all disciples to enter a level 1 state of alert. Activate the protective array immediately. Activate it now? Wouldn't it be too wasteful if that kid doesn't come? An elder said. Even if it's a waste of large amounts of crystal origin stones, it's still better than letting that kid cause trouble in the Skygold sect. Chapter 434. From the Skygold sect's point of view, Mo Shi destroying the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect sounded unbelievable. However, this was already the limit. He could only bully the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect because they did not have a Grand Desolate Master. However, the Skygold sect had 2 Grand Desolate Masters. They did not believe that Mo Shi could challenge these 2 Grand Desolate Masters alone. Although Mo Shi had killed an evil dragon in the 4th district of the Ancient Dragon battlefield, he was indeed very strong. However, it was obvious that his saber had an absolute restraining effect on the giant dragon evil spirit. If he fought against a Grand Desolate Master, he would not be that strong. Moreover, the Sky Gold sect had the Mountain Protection Array. The Mountain Protection Array was said to be able to withstand the attacks of a Grand Desolate Master. It could also withstand teleportation skills. Now that they had activated the Mountain Protection Array in advance, no matter how strong that kid was, he would not be able to break it. A 2-meter thick earthy yellow light barrier rose slowly. It was like a huge bowl that covered the entire mountain. The Sky Gold sect master felt more at ease. Even a Grand Desolate Master like him could not break this Mountain Protection Array. It was impossible for that kid to break it by force. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder had a fierce look in his eyes. His thoughts were slightly different from the sect master's. Just blocking that kid was not enough. He was thinking of a way to kill that brat and avenge his son. At the same time, Mo Sure had arrived 5 kilometers away from the Sky Gold sect. He flapped his demonic dragon wings and looked down at the earthy yellow light barrier. He sneered in his heart. With a thought, he released the Sea Dragon clone. The current Sea Dragon clone had already reached a length of more than 1,300 meters. After Mo Sure destroyed the Skywood sect, his kill points had reached more than 1,000. With this, he had become a level 3 Desolate Master. As the Sea Dragon clone had swallowed 2 Dragon Ball fragments, it had also become a level 3 Desolate Beast when Mo Sure had become a level 3 Desolate Beast. It was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. There was not a single level 3 Grand Desolate Master in the entire 16 prefectures. Therefore, the current Azure Dragon clone was absolutely invincible in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud. Almost everyone in the Heavenly Gold sect was looking up at the sky. When they saw Mo Sure appear alone, they sneered in their hearts. Was this guy here to die? However, they soon discovered that a gigantic creature over 1,000 meters long had appeared beside Mo Sure. The head of this creature looked even more ferocious than the heads of giant dragons they had seen in historical records. Its python-like body gave off a mysterious, terrifying, and powerful feeling. Everyone from the Heavenly Gold sect was shocked when they saw the creature. None of them had ever seen such a creature before. However, they could feel how tiny and vulnerable they were in front of this creature. At this moment, they could only place all their hopes on the protective mountain array that they had already activated. The Mountain Protecting Array was a powerful array formation that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. No matter how strong this creature was, it was unlikely that it could break through the Mountain Protecting Array. At this moment, Mo Sure ordered the Azure Dragon clone, break the array. The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down from the sky. Its tree-like legs carried thick and sharp claws as it slashed at the yellowish-brown Mountain Protecting Array. It did not use any energy. Rumble. The 2-meter-thick yellowish-brown energy barrier was shattered by the claw. There was no suspense. Everyone present, including the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder and their sect master, had a terrible expression. This was a barrier that could withstand the attacks of Grand Desolate Masters. However, it was shattered by this creature's claw. Furthermore, it did not even use any energy. It had reached such a powerful level with just its physical strength. Just how strong was this creature? Actually, the Heavenly Gold sect's Mountain Protecting Array could only withstand the attacks of level 1 Grand Desolate Masters. It could not even withstand the attacks of level 2 Grand Desolate Masters, let alone the Azure Dragon clone, which was equivalent to a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Mo Sure stared coldly at the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder. He ordered the Azure Dragon clone, destroy him. The Azure Dragon clone immediately slithered down. The giant claw slashed at the mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was. Rumble. The entire mountain where the Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was collapsed. The Heavenly Gold sect's Great Elder was crushed into meat paste by the terrifying power of the claw. The Great Elder, a level 1 Grand Desolate Master, was killed instantly. Seeing this, the Heavenly Gold sect's sect master was filled with regret. He was so regretful that his intestines turned green. If he had known this would happen, he would definitely not have allowed the Great Elder to seek revenge on Mo Sure. Now, not only was the Great Elder dead, but the entire Heavenly Gold sect was also destroyed. Speaking of which, who would have thought that a mere desolate hunter would have such a terrifying and powerful mutated desolate beast by his side? Now that things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. The only thing he could do was to escape. As long as he could keep his life, with his strength as a Grand Desolate Master, he would be able to establish another powerful sect in the 16 prefectures in no time. Thinking of this, he turned around to escape. However, at this moment the Sea Dragon clone had already blocked his path. Without any hesitation, The huge tail smashed towards the Heavenly Gold sect master. Seeing that it was too late to dodge, the Heavenly Gold sect master hurriedly activated his life-saving trump card. Not just one but a total of 5. The 5 life-saving trump cards emitted 5 different colors of light. White, green, black, red and yellow. Obviously these were the colors of metal, wood, water, fire and earth. The 5 types of energy multiplied and multiplied endlessly. Around his body a 5-colored light shield was formed. However, in the next moment, rumble, the sea dragon clone's huge tail had already smashed into his position. Instantly the mountain he was on crumbled. Huge rocks were sent flying in all directions by the force of the impact. The entire mountain was like a sand sculpture, splattering in all directions. As for the Heavenly Gold sect's great elder, he was smashed into meat paste. The 5-colored light barrier around his body didn't even last for 0.01 seconds. At this point, the 2 powerful figures guarding the Heavenly Gold sect had both been killed instantly. The rest of the Heavenly Gold sect's disciples felt their legs turn to jelly and their hearts tremble. Even the sect master and great elder, who were the most powerful in the sect, had been killed instantly. What chance did they have? However, Immortality did not let the sea dragon clone attack again. Instead, he used his dragon consciousness. He instantly captured the spiritual psyche masters in the Heavenly Gold sect. Boom, boom, the 2 spiritual psyche masters' bodies exploded instantly. Then, they were all the spiritual psyche masters in the Heavenly Gold sect. The spiritual psyche masters' bodies also exploded continuously like firecrackers during the new year. When the Heavenly Gold sect's disciples saw this strange scene, they all screamed and turned to escape. Chapter 435. The Sky Gold sect's Grand Elder and Sect Master were killed instantly. Their spiritual Psyche Masters and Great Psyche Masters were also killed. Following that, the Sky Gold sect's hunters also exploded. This caused the entire Sky Gold sect to fall into a terrifying atmosphere. No one knew if they would be the next to explode. Under such a terrifying atmosphere there was nothing else they could do. The only thing they could do was to run. In their opinion they would only not explode if they escaped. Therefore all the Sky Gold sect disciples fled in all directions. However, how could their speed be faster than Immortality's dragon consciousness? The dragon consciousness covered a radius of 350 kilometers. None of them had the ability to travel 350 kilometers in an instant. Boom 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 boom. Within a few minutes all the scavengers among the 100,000 disciples of the Heavenly Gold sect had exploded. The entire mountain of the Heavenly Gold sect, as well as a few nearby mountains, were dyed red. Other than red, no other colors could be seen. The blood turned into a blood-red mist that covered a radius of more than 50 kilometers. Even the cultivators who were more than 100 kilometers away could smell the stench of blood here. As for the remaining Sky Gold sect's hunters, they were already scared out of their wits and were fleeing in all directions. However, they still could not escape Immortality's pursuit. Immortality transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon again. Now he had evolved into a rank 3 bloodthirsty demon dragon. His true combat strength was invincible under the Grand Desolate Master level. These 100 or so hunters did not even have the will to resist. He had easily killed them in just over 10 minutes. Now the Sky Gold sect was destroyed. From the time he went to the Heavenly Water sect to the destruction of the Sky Gold sect, it had only been 3 hours. No one would have thought that the 3 major sects that had dominated the 16 governors of the remote cloud region for thousands of years would be destroyed in just 3 hours. At this moment, Immortality transformed into his human form again and changed into a new set of clothes. He looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points, 430100000, he shook his head. For the current him, killing hunters was no longer enough. He had to kill desolate hunters in order to obtain enough killing points. However, there were not many hunters on the Flaming Origin continent. In the entire continent there were at most 10,000 of them. Moreover, these people didn't provoke him. If he killed them as he pleased, how would he be any different from the real bloodthirsty demon dragon? It seemed like he could only head to the 20th hunting ground next. In the 20th hunting ground, the strongest beast was a level 10 mutated wild beast. Most of the desolate beasts were mutated desolate beasts of level 1 and above. That was the best place to get killing points. But before going there, Immortality wanted to find a way to make the spirit-engulfing beast spit out the dragon will that it had swallowed. He could also devour these dragon wills and raise his own dragon wills level. After sorting out his thoughts, Immortality searched through the Heavenly Gold sect again. Only then did he return to the base. Emoshur communicated with the spirit-engulfing beast king and asked, "How do I make you spit out all the dragon intent you've devoured?" The spirit-engulfing beast also possessed a small portion of its dragon will. It communicated with Emoshur, "As long as the master is willing, I can spit it out at any time." So simple? Emoshur stared at the spirit-engulfing beast. The spirit-engulfing beast immediately replied, "It's that simple. Then why didn't you say so before?" Emoshur asked. The spirit-engulfing beast replied, "I used to be in the ancient dragon battlefield. I was sealed by a human at the ancient dragon battlefield. The seal affected my ability so I couldn't spit it out. But now that I've left the ancient dragon battlefield, I can spit it out." Emoshur was speechless. So it was that simple. "Then hurry up," Emoshur said. The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and opened its mouth. More than a dozen tentacles came out of its mouth. At the same time, balls of dragon will floated out of its mouth. These dragon wills were different from the dragon spirits it had devoured before. They had no energy and could be directly devoured by Emoshur's dragon will. Emoshur immediately enveloped these dragon wills with his dragon will and activated the dragon will devour skill. Emoshur didn't feel anything when he devoured the dragon wills. It was just that the dragon wills were getting stronger. In just 5 minutes, Emoshur's dragon will was more than 10 times stronger than before. At the same time, a system notification popped up in his mind. Dragon will upgraded to level 8. Emoshur couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Back at the ancient dragon battlefield, the spirit-engulfing beast had devoured a lot of dragon spirits. Now the dragon wills in its body were enormous. He had only devoured them for a few minutes, and it had already upgraded to level 8. It seemed that his dragon will would upgrade several levels if he devoured all of them. Half an hour later, the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 9. 2 hours later, the system notification popped up again. Dragon will upgraded to level 10. At this point, the spirit-engulfing beast finally stopped spitting out dragon wills. His body was a little weak and it lay limp on the ground. It looked at Emoshur with a pair of big pitiful eyes. It was as if it was saying, "Master, I don't have any more." He stroked the spirit-engulfing beast's furry head and said, "You've worked hard. Go and rest." The spirit-engulfing beast nodded and got up weakly. It found a corner and curled up. At this time, Emoshur's dragon will had reached the 10th level. He spread out his dragon will and everything within a radius of 500 kilometers was under his control. A level 10 dragon will was equivalent to the spiritual will of a level 10 spiritual psychic. In this world, spiritual psychics were very rare to begin with. Occasionally there would be 1 or 2, but they were only level 1 spiritual psychics. It could be seen that Emoshur's spiritual power was unrivaled. Moreover, a level 10 dragon will was able to directly blast apart the bodies of any desolate hunters below level 5. In this way it was very beneficial for Emoshur when he went to level 20 hunting grounds to collect kill points. After doing all this, Emoshur once again rested in the base. Every day he would watch the sunset, enjoy the sea breeze and listen to the waves. It was a comfortable life. During the few days he rested, all the media in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud exploded. The news of the destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect spread like wildfire on the internet. Breaking news. Heavenly Gold, Heavenly Wood and Heavenly Water Trisect destroyed. Breaking news. The top 3 forces in the 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud destroyed. Freezing 16 prefectures with 1 sword or making a comeback. Is it the loss of morals or the distortion of human nature? The destruction of the Heavenly Gold Trisect. Emoshur looked at the news and laughed in his heart. Senior Han Jianxing, I'm sorry. They thought you were the murderer and I couldn't help it. Although many people wanted to be famous, Emoshur didn't want to be famous at the moment. He wanted to collect killing points. If everyone knew who he was, they would hide far away from him. How would he be able to kill them? Chapter 436. In 3 days, the news of the destruction of the Sky Gold Trisect spread throughout the 16 prefectures. This shocked the entire 16 prefectures. When the various factions and sects learned of this news, they all retracted their sharp edges. After all, they knew that the 3 sects were usually arrogant. Especially the Sky Gold sect. No matter what they did, they always pretended to be righteous and found a dignified reason. However, those who understood understood. Everyone knew that the Sky Gold sect wasn't anything good. However, the Sky Gold sect was too powerful and they didn't dare to voice their anger. Now that the Sky Gold sect was destroyed, they had to restrain themselves even though it was satisfying. If they were noticed by the ruthless person who destroyed the three sects, wouldn't their sects follow in the footsteps of the Sky Gold Trisect? At the same time, many people raised some guesses. They were guessing who the culprit was. Given the strength of the Sky Gold Trisect, it must be an incredible major faction to be able to destroy the three sects in a day. Perhaps it was another major faction on the continent. The continent was very big. There were at least 800 factions that were stronger than the Sky Gold Trisect. In front of such a major faction, the Sky Gold sect was an ant. However, even if a major faction came, there must be a large number of people to be able to destroy the three sects in a day. It was impossible that no one had seen such a huge commotion. Therefore, it couldn't be a major faction on the continent. It was very likely to be an unparalleled expert. If it was an unparalleled expert, it was very likely to be an expert from the 16 prefectures. This was because compared to the other prefectures, the 16 prefectures were relatively barren. Whether it was crystal source ores or other cultivation materials, they were pitifully scarce. Therefore, experts who were at least Grand Desolate Masters wouldn't come to the 16 prefectures. As for a local expert to be able to do this, at the thought of this, a figure appeared in everyone's mind. He looked like a scholar with a 3-meter-long giant sword beside him. The giant sword was 3 meters long in battle and 5 meters when used as a flying device. Chilling the 16 prefectures with a single sword, Han Jianxing. If there was anyone in the 16 prefectures who could do this, it would be Han Jianxing. A few decades ago he had single-handedly destroyed 19 sections. At that time he was already a grade 1 Grand Desolate Master. Now that a few decades had passed, with his talent, it was not difficult for him to become a grade 3 or even grade 4 Grand Desolate Master. It was still a little too difficult for such an expert to destroy the Sky Gold Trisect in a single day. After all, there were more than 100,000 disciples in the three sections. Killing 300,000 people in one day, unless this person was a very strong spiritual reader master. Clearly Han Jianxing was not one of them. However, Han Jianxing would go to the Ancient Dragon battlefield every year. What kind of place was the Ancient Dragon battlefield? It was a place that no hunters below level 5 dared to casually enter. Moreover, he had gone to District 4 of the Ancient Dragon battlefield. It was said that the 4th region of the Ancient Dragon battlefield was a place that even Grand Desolate Masters did not dare to casually enter. It was no wonder that such a person could destroy the Celestial Gold Trisect. In the Liangzhou of the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, there was a desolate western border. At the top of a dilapidated ancient city gate, a man was sitting there with a wine pot in his hand. As he drank, he looked at the setting sun in the west. Beside him, there was a 3-meter-long sword that brushed against the stone wall. This man was Han Jianxing. At this moment, a woman who looked to be in her 20s descended from the sky. "Father, don't drink any more." The person who came was none other than Han Jianxing's daughter, Han Lubai. Han Jianxing turned his head and looked at his daughter drowsily. His eyes revealed a trace of affection. "Since I have nothing to do, I'll drink to relax." Han Lubai didn't want to dwell on this matter. Instead she asked, "Dad, did you destroy their sect again?" Han Jianxing shook his head. "Why would I destroy another sect for no reason?" Han Lubai curled her lips. "Come on, it's not like you haven't done it before." Han Jianxing shook his head again and did not argue. Han Lubai turned on her multifunctional watch and opened a few web pages. She handed them to Han Jianxing. "You're still denying it?" Han Jianxing looked at the words on the web pages. Shocking. A sword freezing the 16 prefectures reappears in the pugilistic world. Sorry Sky Gold sect. Sorry Skywood sect. Sorry Heavenly Water sect. I Han Jianxing have returned to the pugilistic world. First battle in the pugilistic world, I destroyed 3 sects in one battle. The words below were basically about Han Jianxing's return to the pugilistic world and the destruction of 3 sections. Moreover, he made it sound like it was real. There were even photos of the scene. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. Several mountain peaks were dyed blood red. Destroyed mountain peaks and so on. There were even the corpses of the Sky Gold sect's sect master and grand elder who had been reduced to meat paste. If not for their clothes, it would be impossible to tell that they were the 2 Grand Desolate Masters of the Sky Gold sect. And there were also some live streamers who went to the scene to do a live broadcast. The blood mist that filled the sky, the corpses that were strewn all over the ground, and the huge collapsed mountain rocks were all telling the story of the massacre that had happened that day. Seeing this, Han Jianxing shook his head. "It's not me. Han Lubai curled her lips again. Still stubborn? Look at the article below. The analysis is reasonable and it's saying that it's you. Still not admitting it? Han Jianxing laughed. Can the unscrupulous media nowadays be trusted? Han Lubai still didn't believe him and asked back, if it's not you, who can it be? Hearing her question, a figure appeared in Han Lubai's mind. It should be him. Seeing this, Han Lubai asked, who? Han Jianxing said, do you still remember when you threw a tantrum and went to the 13th hunting ground? Han Lubai nodded, yes, what's wrong? Han Jianxing said, at that time there was a kid who provided me with clues. That's why I could find you so quickly. Han Lubai's heart skipped a beat. You mean that little brother? Han Jianxing nodded, yes. Han Lubai shook her head. This is impossible. At that time he wasn't even a desolate master. It's only been half a year. How could he have grown to this level? Han Jianxing nodded again. This time I went to the ancient dragon battlefield and saw him. He killed the sect masters of the Skywood sect and the Heavenly Water sect by himself, as well as more than 400 elite disciples of the Skygold Trisect. And with a strange saber, he killed more than 1,000 giant dragon evil spirits in the 4th district. Han Lubai's mouth opened wider and wider as she listened. Dad, are you joking with me? From a desolate master to a grand desolate master in half a year? Isn't this too ridiculous? Chapter 437. Han Jianxing shook his head. He's only a rank 2 desolate hunter, but his combat power is no weaker than a rank 10 desolate hunter. Most importantly, he's a summoner and can summon rank 2 desolate beasts. It was that rank 2 desolate beast that killed those 2 desolate masters. So, if there's anyone who can wipe out the 3 sects in a single day, it's definitely him. Han Jianxing seemed to recall something at this point. Although he was looking at the setting sun on the horizon, it was as if he could see through the setting sun and see the scene on the ancient battlefield of the Great Dragon. He slowly said, and he can transform into a dragon. Dragon. Han Lubai's eyes lit up. Giant dragons, that was a creature that only existed in legends. Since ancient times, countless people had been searching for the giant dragon, wave after wave. However, they were disappointed that they couldn't find a single living dragon after tens of thousands of years. It was obvious that dragons were extinct. However, people's worship of giant dragons had never died out. As long as one was from the flaming origin continent, they would yearn for dragons. She didn't expect this guy to be able to transform into a dragon. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years of history. Dad, is that for real? Are you sure you're not mistaken? Han Jianxing shook his head. How could I be mistaken? The moment he transformed into a giant dragon, even I had the urge to worship him. He's definitely a real dragon. Han Lubai's eyes lit up. Dad, you said before that if I were to find a boyfriend in the future, I'd have to find someone stronger than you. Now this little brother is almost worshipped by you. Can I ask him to be my boyfriend? She had a good impression of Emo Sure. But because her father didn't agree, she could only suppress it in her heart for now. Now that her father mentioned him again, saying that he was strong enough to crush a rank 1 desolate master, she was naturally moved. But more importantly, it was because of curiosity. How could a person transform into a dragon? Did he have a dragon bloodline? A dragon. She wanted to find Emo Sure because of her yearning for dragons and her curiosity about a person who could transform into a dragon. Han Jianxing abruptly turned around, his face stern. No. Han Lubai jumped in fright and couldn't help but ask, Dad, why? Han Jianxing shook his head. The dragon that he transforms into carries too much killing intent. In the future, he might even grow into a devil who killed people without batting an eyelid. So no. As an experienced and knowledgeable Grand Desolate Master, he did not know what a bloodthirsty demon dragon was. However, when Emo Sure transformed into a giant dragon, he could feel the murderous aura that was released. When he destroyed 19 sects to avenge his wife, that was when his killing intent was at its strongest. But even then, his killing intent was not even 1/100th of this kid's. This kid's murderous aura could even condense into a substance to kill people. How could she let her daughter look for him? Hearing Han Jianxing's words, Han Lubai's heart couldn't help trembling. After a moment of silence, she said to the man under her roof, Dad, then can't you go find him and help him get rid of the murderous aura on him? After all, he helped me find your daughter. You can't just watch him become a peerless devil. Han Jianxing shook his head. My murderous aura from back then only gradually disappeared after a few decades. His current murderous aura probably won't disappear in this lifetime. If you follow him, you'll have to spend the rest of your life in killing and fleeing. What's more dangerous is that when he goes berserk, even his family and friends will be killed by him. Han Lubai's heart sank when she heard this. Is there really no other way? Han Jianxing said, I'm afraid so. At this moment, Mo Shi rested for a few days after reaching level 10 Long Yen Shi. When his dragon will had completely stabilized, he set off for the 10th hunting island again. Previously, in order to curry favor with the Sky Gold sect, the 10th hunting island had directly come to the first hunting island to capture him and send him to the Sky Gold sect. Now that the Sky Gold sect had been destroyed, he naturally couldn't let them go. Therefore Mo Shi kept teleporting to the 10th hunting island. In just half an hour he arrived at the 10th hunting island. At this moment on the 10th hunting island, the island owner had already set up all the defenses around the island. Previously, when the female manager was killed by Mo Shi on the spot, he already knew that something was wrong. After that he contacted the Sky Gold sect, who said that they would deal with it immediately. However, 5 days had passed. Not only did the Sky Gold sect fail to get rid of that brat, but they also received news that the Sky Gold sect had been destroyed. When he heard this news he was completely dumbfounded. Although he didn't think it was that brat who did it. However, now that the Sky Gold sect had been destroyed, no one would deal with that brat. Therefore, if that brat wanted to take revenge on the 10th hunting island, they would have to bear all the consequences themselves. Fortunately, he had already hired a few desolate hunters to guard the 10th hunting island. However, now that the Sky Gold sect was gone, the 10th hunting island no longer had a backer. Therefore, a few dozen desolate hunters were far from enough. Therefore he had to hire more desolate hunters. In the afternoon, those desolate hunters had already arrived. They were guarding the 10th hunting island at this moment. As a result he felt a little more at ease. At the same time, Mo Shi had already arrived above the 10th hunting island. With a thought, he plundered the memories of the few people on the island. After checking their memories, he found out that there were more than 100 desolate hunters on the island. This was a pleasant surprise for Mo Shi. He flapped his wings. At this moment, the wings were condensed from energy and were not the wings of the demonic dragon. After all, the system had once told him not to casually reveal the body of the bloodthirsty demonic dragon. He looked down at the entire 10th hunting island and shouted, "Island owner of the 10th hunting island, come out and accept your death." His booming voice spread to the bottom of the island. The seawater around the 10th hunting island was stirred up by his voice and spread out in all directions. The people on the 10th hunting island were all shocked. They all looked up at the angel. Upon hearing this, the expression of the island owner of the 10th hunting island changed. He hurriedly said to the hired desolate hunters through his multifunctional watch, "Kill him and each of you will be rewarded with 10,000 crystal sources. Those who kill him with their own hands will be rewarded with 100,000 crystal sources." With such a great reward there would definitely be brave men. When the 100 or so desolate hunters heard such a great reward, they were all overjoyed. "Watch me. Let me do it. Today's kill is mine." Chapter 438. He's mine. I'm definitely going to take this head. Let me do it. When these desolate hunters saw Mo Shi in the air and heard Mo Shi's shout, they were not afraid at all. Instead they were very excited. After all, as long as they killed this kid, everyone would be able to obtain origin crystals. Moreover, the person who killed him would be able to obtain 100,000 origin crystals. This was definitely a reward that far exceeded their expectations. Moreover, they did not know Mo Shi and did not know how strong Mo Shi was. In their opinion, he should be at most a rank 10 desolate hunter. It was impossible for him to be a grand desolate master. After all, in the entire 16 prefectures of Serene Cloud, there were no more than 10 grand desolate masters. As long as he was a grand desolate master, it was impossible for them not to know him. As long as he was not a grand desolate master, it would be easy to deal with him. Among them there were quite a few rank 10 desolate hunters. They would be able to take down this kid no matter what. Mo Shi looked at the group of desolate hunters below who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth, and the corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a satisfied smile. They were rushing to give him kill points. He could have more people like this. Soon, more than 100 desolate hunters rushed to Mo Shi's location. However, halfway through their flight, bang! A body with 5 meridians mismatched suddenly exploded into a cloud of blood mist. It was as if a red firework had exploded in the air. The surrounding desolate hunters heard the sound and turned their heads to look. When they saw it, they were all stunned. What happened? But before they could wrap their heads around it, the explosions rang out one after another. Bang, 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 bang. The surrounding desolate hunters exploded into a cloud of blood mist as if dozens of fireworks had exploded at the same time. The difference was that the fireworks were colorful, but the blood mist that these people had exploded into was only one color. Seeing such a strange scene, the expressions of the desolate hunters changed greatly. "Not good, he's a spirit psychic," someone exclaimed. To be able to use this method to explode the bodies of desolate hunters below rank 5, he must be a spirit psychic. Just as they were talking, Immortal's draconic will moved. The blood mist that had exploded in the air no longer dispersed. Instead, it spiraled around his body. Soon, a blood tornado formed around his body. In the next moment, he flew towards the 2 level 10 desolate hunters. His speed was much faster than that of the 2 grade 10 desolate hunters. Seeing that they could not escape, the 2 level 10 desolate hunters hurriedly condensed their genetic weapons and tried to convert them into energy weapons. However, it was already too late. Immortal's blood tornado had already arrived in front of them. In an instant, the 2 of them were swallowed. Within the bloody tornado, every drop of blood was like a sharp blade as it spun at high speed. Chi. The bodies of the 2 men were instantly torn apart. Their corpses continued to be torn apart. In the end, they turned into fresh blood droplets that merged into the blood tornado. When the others saw this, they were all horrified. Even if it was a stone, it would still make a sound when thrown into the water. These 2 were level 10 desolate hunters, but they didn't leave anything behind after entering the blood tornado. This was truly too terrifying. At this point, they had already forgotten about the reward they had been promised, and had even forgotten the reason why they had been hired to come here. There was only one thought in their minds: run. Many of them were even more regretful. If they had known this would happen, they would never have come to this place. No matter how much money they were offered, they would not have done it. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. It was already too late for them to regret. The speed of the blood tornado was far beyond their imagination. In just a minute, all of them had been sucked in. After everyone was sucked in, they silently disappeared into the blood tornado. Of course, some of them took out their wormhole teleportation devices. However, as soon as they took it out, boom boom, their wormhole teleportation devices seemed to have been subjected to some kind of terrifying pressure and exploded. Therefore, they could only face despair. Soon, these 100+ desolate hunters were all slaughtered by Immortal. At this point, in his mind, the kill points had increased by more than 100. Kill points, 5991000. On the island below, everyone's expression changed drastically. Whether it was the original employees of the 10th Hunting Island or the people who had come to the island for training, they were all terrified. They were all afraid that this terrifying murderous demon could kill them all with just a thought. Judging from the current situation, he really had the ability to do so. After all, those who came to the 10th Hunting Island for training were basically only level 10 desolate hunters. The 10th Hunting Island's owner was already in despair at this point. He should not have provoked this kid in the first place. However, who knew that this kid was actually so strong? Immortal looked down and said in a cold voice, "You're a benefactor. 10th Hunting Island's owner, die." Before his voice died away, his dragon consciousness was about to spread out and bombard the 10th Hunting Island's owner. However, at this moment, a voice was heard. "Stop." Before the voice died away, a figure had already flown up. Everyone turned to look at that person. It was a middle-aged man. He was dressed in black. There were faint dark golden patterns on his clothes. The patterns were shaped like fine scales. On the left side of his chest, there was a small dragon pattern embroidered on it. Immortal would not have paid any attention to his stop. Usually, when he encountered such a situation, he would kill the target first. However, this person's attire at this moment attracted his attention. He quietly floated in the air and looked at that person. That person also looked at Immortal and sized up Immortal. That person introduced himself. "I am Long Changyuan of the dragon race." Immortal activated the demon dragon's eye and sized this person up again. Race, human, level 8 desolate hunter. Immortal knew that the so-called dragon race on this flaming land was actually not the real dragon race. Their ancestors had received favors from the dragon race and swore to be the dragon race's protectors for generations. As time passed, tens of thousands of years had passed. The descendants of these protectors became more and more arrogant. They did not know how they spread the rumors, but later on, they believed that they had the dragon race's bloodline in them, but it had not been awakened. Once it was awakened, they would be invincible in the entire flaming land. Therefore they called themselves the dragon race. Imo felt that this was a bit ridiculous. Moreover, such a ridiculous thing, who else could it be? This was the most ridiculous thing. That Long Changyuan said to Imo, "Little brother, although I don't know what happened between you and the 10th Hunting Island's owner, as an experienced person, I advise you to be lenient where possible. Take a step back and you'll be at peace. Don't kill too many people." Imo did not like this person to begin with. Hearing his words, he was even more annoyed. He asked coldly, "You know what I've been through and you're telling me to take a step back?" Chapter 439. When he heard Long Changyuan of the Dragon Clan advising him, Imo was furious. "You know what I've been through and you're advising me to take a step back? Has your wife been killed? Has your son been killed? Has your family been destroyed? Has your family of more than 300 people been killed?" Long Changyuan was slightly taken aback. He asked, "Have you been through all of this?" Imo shook his head. "No." Long Changyuan. Imo glanced at the 10th Hunting Island and continued, "I just want to tell you that you shouldn't advise others to be kind if you haven't experienced their pain. You know what they've been through and you're advising them to be magnanimous?" Long Changyuan felt like he had been tricked by this kid. He had advised him not to kill so many people out of goodwill, but he had tricked him. He, a member of the dragon race, had been tricked by a mere human. How preposterous. Thinking of this, he said coldly, "Kid, I was advising you out of goodwill, but you didn't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, I'll stop you from killing him today." Before he finished speaking, Long Wei suddenly spread out from his body and attacked Imo. Imo felt the Long Wei and couldn't help but be a little surprised. This so-called dragon race could really release Long Wei. He finally understood why so many people on the Flaming Dawn continent believed the false dragon's lies and deceit. However, this Long Wei was not even worth mentioning in front of Imo. Moreover, he was a giant dragon and was completely immune to Long Wei. Therefore he sneered and warned, "Those who stop me will die. Are you sure you want to stop me?" When Long Changyuan saw that Imo's expression didn't change at all under the dragon's might, he was also slightly surprised. Ever since he learned how to use dragon's might, most people's expressions would change drastically and they would panic in front of his dragon's might. Only a few people were not afraid of his Long Wei. However, people like that were far stronger than him. For example, a Grand Desolate Master. Could it be that this kid was a Grand Desolate Master? Thinking of this, he started to panic a little. However, the Dragon Clan had always been arrogant and refused to admit defeat. He pretended to be calm and snorted coldly. "If you kill me, you will be going against the entire Dragon Clan. You have to think carefully." Poof! Before he could finish his sentence, a tentacle had already pierced his heart. At the same time, Imo's indifferent voice sounded, "Do I need to think about killing you?" Long Changyuan's words came to an abrupt end. He looked down at his chest. His chest had already been pierced by a blood-red tentacle. Fresh blood slowly dripped from the wound along the dragon-patterned robe. His gaze followed the blood-red tentacle that pierced his chest. It stretched all the way to the end of the tentacle. It was Imo. This brat actually dared to make a move against him. A human actually dared to attack the noble Dragon Clan? One had to know that the Dragon Clan had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. In these tens of thousands of years, the dragon race had produced many Grand Desolate Master experts. Moreover, these Grand Desolate Master experts of the Dragon Clan were several times stronger than the human Grand Desolate Master experts. These Grand Desolate Master experts had made quite a name for themselves in these tens of thousands of years. Therefore, the Dragon Clan's foundation was something that the other powers on the continent could not compare to. Even now, no one knew how many Grand Desolate Master experts of the Dragon Clan were still alive. Maybe 20, 30, or 100. In short, the Dragon Clan was undoubtedly the #1 power on the continent. Even if they did not expand their power and had always guarded their small place. However, no power dared to look down on the Dragon Clan. Therefore, no matter who it was, after seeing the Dragon Clan, they could only be careful, afraid that they would anger the Dragon Clan. Even those Grand Desolate Masters were no exception. And now, a mere desolate hunter actually wanted to kill him. Blood had already flowed out of his mouth. His gaze was fixed on Imo. Pausing after each word, "The Dragon Clan will not let you off." Poof! Before he finished speaking, the blood-red tentacle had already grown hundreds and thousands of tiny tentacles in his body, and scattered from his body. His entire body seemed to have turned into a sea urchin with blood-red thorns all over his body. In the next moment, Mo Shi's tentacles retracted back into his body. The dragon clan will not let me off? I'm afraid you don't know what a dragon-slaying saber is. On the 10th hunting island, everyone looked at Mo Shi, each and every one of them was shocked. This kid actually dared to kill the dragon clan. Did he eat a bear's heart and leopard's guts? Crazy, absolutely crazy. At the same time they were all afraid of Mo Shi. This kid did not care about his life and even dared to kill the dragon clan. Who else would he not dare to kill? When the 10th hunting island owner saw that Mo Shi even dared to kill the dragon clan, his heart was filled with despair. This kid was not even afraid of the dragon clan's prestige. He was just a small island owner on the 10th hunting island. In front of this kid he could forget about living. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, boom! The body of the island owner of the 10th hunting island exploded. Along with him, the other tens of thousands of desolate hunters on the 10th hunting island also exploded. Only those who came to the 10th hunting island for training did not explode. Although Mo Shi wanted to collect kill points, he would not kill the innocent for no reason. Earlier the dragon clan wanted to stop him, so he killed him. The others did not stop him, so he naturally would not kill them. After wiping out everyone on the 10th hunting island, Mo Shi's kill points had just broken through 700. It seemed like there was still a long way to go to collect kill points. Previously, Mo Shi was thinking of going to the 20th hunting island after wiping out the 10th hunting island. However, the appearance of the dragon clan had piqued his interest. So, he changed his mind and decided to pay a visit to the dragon clan first. The dragon clan was located in the Dragon Province, far away from the 16 provinces of Serene Cloud. It was the province with the most abundant resources among the 58 provinces of the entire Flamestone continent. Over 10,000 years ago, this place was not called the Dragon Province. However, the Dragon Clan discovered that this place was rich in resources, so they moved the entire Dragon Clan here. During these 10,000 years, the other forces were afraid of the Dragon Clan's strength, so they all moved away. In the end, the only major force left in this province was the Dragon Clan. So this place was renamed the Dragon Province. Because of the existence of the Dragon Clan, the Dragon Province became the largest province on the entire Flamestone continent. When the people of the Dragon Province went to other provinces, they would feel that they were superior. Although Mo Shi had once obtained a teleportation device of the Dragon Clan, he did not use it. Only the Dragon Clan would have the teleportation device of the Dragon Clan. If he teleported there rashly, he would not be able to explain it at all. So, before he figured out the situation over there, he did not plan to make too much of it. He teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. With Mo Shi's speed of 1,000 kilometers per second, it took him 12 hours to teleport there. Chapter 440. Mo Shi teleported all the way to the Dragon Province. It took him 12 hours to reach there. According to his personality in the past, he would not go directly to the Dragon Clan. Before going to the Dragon Clan, he had to stay in the Dragon Province for a while and learn about the Dragon Clan through various aspects. But now, after Mo Shi transformed into the bloodthirsty demon dragon, his personality had changed. The risk factor in his personality had increased by a lot. And he had already learned about the Dragon Clan through Long Changyuan's memories. Plus, he had a powerful mutated desolate beast like the Sea Dragon clone as his trump card, so he obviously had nothing to worry about. Even if there was a powerful existence in the Dragon Clan that surpassed a third-level Grand Desolate Master, Mo Shi could still escape through teleportation. Taking a step back, even if the other party could also teleport, his speed would be faster than his own. Mo Shi could still hide in his miniature world. He did not believe that the other party could chase him into his miniature world. A few minutes later, Mo Shi had already teleported to the territory of the Dragon Clan. The Dragon Clan occupied a valley. On the north and south sides of the valley were towering mountains. The mountains were very steep, almost straight up and down. There were waterfalls and springs on the mountains. A large river ran from east to west. On the walls of the mountains on both sides, there were many naturally formed caves and platforms. This was the base camp of the Dragon Clan. Mo Shi scanned over with his dragon's sense. He was also a little surprised. It seemed like there were not many people in the valley. But the valley was more than 300 kilometers long. In such a long valley, there were more than 200,000 people hidden. Every single one of them was dressed in black with dark golden dragon scales embroidered on their clothes. When Mo Shi used the demon dragon's eye to observe the levels of these people, he discovered that there were close to 10,000 desolate hunters among them. There were also over 100 grand desolate masters. Even Immortality could not help but gasp. No wonder they dared to call themselves the strongest faction on the Flaming Dawn continent. This was definitely not a joke. In the 16 prefectures of the Serene Cloud, the strongest sect, the Celestial Gold sect, only had over 300 desolate hunters and 2 grand desolate masters. But there were close to 10,000 desolate hunters and over 100 grand desolate masters here. The difference in strength between them was not small at all. According to his investigation, the strongest existences in the dragon race were 12 level 3 grand desolate masters. As for whether or not there were even more powerful existences hiding in a place that even Immortality's devil dragons I couldn't detect, Immortality didn't know. However, he was not afraid. In his mind he said, "System, sign in." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in location, Dragon Valley of the Dragon Province. Sign in reward, miniature world upgrade, Immortality. It leveled up just like that? He originally thought that many conditions would need to be met in order to upgrade his miniature world. For example, he had to reach the level of a Grand Desolate Master. Another example would be to collect enough dragon wills. He didn't think that the Dragon Valley would be upgraded so soon after he arrived. He continued to check in his mind. After the miniature world has been upgraded, its area has reached 10 square kilometers. It can also add any terrain or scenery according to the host's wishes. Immortality pondered for a moment upon hearing this. He said, "I think the scenery of this Dragon Valley is not bad. Can you shrink it according to the appearance of the Dragon Valley and copy it for me?" The system's voice sounded, "No problem." In the next moment, when Immortality's consciousness entered the miniature world, he found that the area of the miniature world was rapidly expanding. In just a few seconds, it had expanded to 100 square kilometers. At the border of the miniature world there was chaos. In the east of the miniature world, the Dragon Valley appeared according to his wishes. This Dragon Valley looked almost exactly the same as the real Dragon Valley. 2 towering mountains with a large river in the middle. On the mountain walls on both sides, waterfalls and springs flowed. In the mountains, yellow leaves were constantly falling. There were many platforms in the mountains. There were houses built on the platforms. Immortality couldn't help but be delighted. This way the scenery of the miniature world would be much richer. In the future, when he brought them in, they could play here for a few days. Of course, the current miniature world was still too small. When he went to more places in the future, he might be able to copy more places into the miniature world. This place would become bigger and bigger, and the scenery would become richer and richer. Of course, when the miniature world became bigger, Immortality would be able to store more things in this city. If he wanted to, this 100 square kilometer area could be used to store things. However, if he did that, it would cause some damage to this place. His consciousness returned to reality from the miniature world. Immortality looked at the Dragon Valley, secretly looking forward to it. He already had a feeling that this trip to the Dragon Valley would be very rewarding. Immortality condensed a pair of wings with his energy and slowly flew towards the Dragon Valley above the river. After flying for less than a kilometer, 2 people also condensed a pair of wings with their energy and flew up. Immortality's wings were 5 meters wide and blood red. But these 2 people's wings were very gaudy. Both of them were golden yellow, which symbolized nobility. Also, there were some dragon patterns on their wings. These 2 people were both desolate hunters. "Stop!" one of them shouted. "Who are you? What do you want?" The other person asked. With a smile, Immortality said, "Oh, I heard that the Dragon Valley is here. I've always yearned for dragons and I'm a fan of the dragon race. Therefore, I traveled thousands of miles from the distant Yuzhou to see the glory of the dragon race." The 2 people looked at each other. "Yuzhou? The Yuzhou in the east, which is the most desolate place?" Immortality nodded. "That's right." The 2 people couldn't help but laugh. Yuzhou is probably tens of millions of kilometers away from here. Even if you use the public teleportation devices between the major provinces, it will take a few months. Also, the cost of using the public teleportation devices is quite high. Immortality smiled and shook his head. "That's true, but in order to see the Dragon Valley with my own eyes, I don't have to worry about it. None of this is a problem." The 2 men said, "Not just anyone can enter the Dragon Valley. Even if you came here with sincerity, we can't let you in so easily. Have you heard of this saying? Those who trespass into the Dragon Valley will be killed without mercy?" Immortality nodded. "Of course I've heard of it, but I didn't come empty-handed. I can offer some crystal source ores to the dragon race. The two people snorted coldly. Crystal source ores? How much can you give? The other person said, I don't want to discourage you, but the dragon race has plenty of crystal source ores. The two of us can each receive at least 300 crystal source ores every month. The crystal source ores you give us are not even enough to fill the gaps between our teeth. Emoshir pretended to be thinking. After a while he said, I see. Then I'll give you 3,000 crystal source ores each and you'll let me in. How about it? Chapter 441. 3,000. The two of them looked at each other and a gulping sound came from their throats. The cultivation method of the dragon clan was different from that of ordinary people. Their ancestors had passed down a lot of giant dragon blood. They relied on absorbing the giant dragon blood to level up. However, even though the giant dragon blood had been diluted many times, it was still too violent for ordinary humans. Therefore, they needed to use crystal source stones to guide the energy in the dragon blood. Therefore, they would consume a lot of crystal source stones when they cultivated. The more crystal source stones they had, the more dragon blood they could absorb and the faster they could level up. The core disciples of the dragon clan could receive as many as thousands of crystal source stones every month. These two disciples who were like gatekeepers could only receive 100 crystal source stones every month. However, they said that they would receive 300 crystal source stones every month to save face. At this moment, they heard that Emoshir was going to give them 3,000 crystal source stones each. This was equivalent to several years of their income. The two of them were naturally excited. You have so many crystal source stones? One of them asked. Emoshir nodded. Of course. As he spoke, he moved his mind. 2 cloth bags appeared in front of him. In each cloth bag there were 3,000 crystal source stones. The two of them were not surprised when they saw Emoshir produce cloth bags out of thin air. In the dragon clan, this kind of wormhole teleportation technology had long been very mature. Things like telekinesis were very common. The two of them opened the cloth bags and saw that the cloth bags were full of crystal source stones. The two of them confirmed that the 2 bags of crystal source stones were real. Although they did not count, they estimated that there were definitely more than 2,000 crystal source stones inside. Their hearts began to thump violently. With so many origin crystals, it would be enough for both of them to level up within a month. After a moment, the two of them suppressed the excitement in their hearts. One of them said, Since you are so sincere about visiting the Dragon Valley, it would be unreasonable of us to not let you in. However, after you enter, you must keep a low profile. Don't expose your identity as an outsider. Otherwise, anyone who trespasses into the Dragon Clan will be killed without mercy, understand? Emoshir nodded. Yes. The other person said in a threatening tone, We'll take a proper inventory later. If there's even a single one of your source crystals missing, we'll throw you out. Emoshir shook his head. Of course not. One of them asked Emoshir, Name? Emoshir said, Emoshir, Emo, as in emotionless killer, Shir, as in full release. Another person took out a device and keyed in Emoshir's name. Then he said to Emoshir, Remember, you will be called Longshir from now on. Hold out your right hand. Emoshir was puzzled. What? One of them said, I told you to stretch out your hand, so stretch it out. Why are you spouting so much nonsense? Emoshir stretched out his right hand. One of them took out something that looked like an electronic thermometer and placed it on Emoshir's wrist. Emoshir felt a sharp pain on his wrist, and then a dragon tattoo the size of a fingernail appeared. The person scanned the tattoo with the device and Emoshir's identity information appeared. Frowny face name, Longshir, race, dragon, level 3 desolate hunter. One of them said to Emoshir, In the future if anyone asks, just say that you're a dragon. Don't waste any more time. We'll give you 3 days to visit. Once you're done, leave immediately and don't cause any trouble. Otherwise we'll find you and throw you out, understand? Emoshir nodded again. Yes. The two people waved their hands and let Emoshir enter. Emoshir said to the two of them, Thank you. He hurriedly entered the dragon clan. The 2 men watched Emoshir's back disappear behind a waterfall. One of them asked, What's the matter? One of them asked, There won't be any problems, right? The other person laughed and said, Causing trouble in our dragon clan? You're courting death. Even if there's really something wrong with him, how much trouble can a mere level 3 desolate hunter cause? Besides, when I put the dragon mark on him just now, I also implanted a tracker. With this tracker we'll know where he is at any time. As long as we check the surveillance footage, we'll know what he's doing. You're smart. What are you talking about? Is this called smart? This is called cunning. Yes, you're cunning. Cut the crap. Let's go back and refine these crystal source stones and try to break through as soon as possible. At the same time, Mosher had turned around from the waterfall and there was a cave. This cave didn't extend into the belly of the mountain. Instead, it passed through a naturally formed wall. On the other side was a platform. The platform was very large, about the size of hundreds of football fields. On this platform there were hundreds of houses. There were thousands of people living here. Mosher couldn't help but feel a little envious. Living in such a valley, there was a huge waterfall next to it. Listening to the sound of the waterfall every night should make one sleep soundly. Mosher plundered the memories of a few people and flipped through them for a moment. From these people's memories, he knew that the Dragon Valley would hold a competition in more than 10 days. There was only one prize for the champion, the incomplete dragon vein. Mosher couldn't help but feel happy. It seemed that he had come at the right time. In the eyes of these dragons, although the incomplete dragon vein was not complete, with the dragon vein by their side, cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. Of course, such a good thing couldn't be used by people with ordinary talent. Instead, it was reserved for those prodigies. There were many prodigies in the dragon tribe. There were more than 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and more than 200 of them could be called prodigies. Therefore, the dragon tribe decided to hold a competition for these prodigies to participate in. In the end, whoever won the championship would get the incomplete dragon vein. Of course, Mosher couldn't participate in the competition. That would take time and effort. Moreover, if he participated in the competition, he would attract too much attention and easily expose his true identity. Therefore, his idea was very simple. First, he would think of a way to find out where the dragon vein was, then use his teleportation skill to steal it. Wasn't it simple? From these people's memories, Mosher knew that the dragon vein was definitely with the dragon tribe leader. It would be difficult to steal it out for the time being. He could only wait for the dragon tribe prodigies to decide the champion. After obtaining the dragon vein, Mosher would steal the dragon vein from the so-called champion. In the next few days, Mosher kept a low profile. Every day, other than touring the dragon tribe, he did nothing else. There were 200,000 people in the dragon tribe, and it was normal for people not to know each other. Therefore, he didn't attract the attention of outsiders. The two guards from before were a little worried at first, afraid that Mosher would cause trouble here. But for 5 days in a row, the two guards saw that Mosher was just playing and didn't have any intention of causing trouble. Only then did they feel relieved and continue to refine those crystal source stones. Chapter 442. Mosher went on a scenic tour in the Dragon Clan for a full 10 days. In these 10 days, other than the Dragon Clan's forbidden area, he went to all the other places. However, what he didn't know was that there were 2 spiritual psyche masters hiding in the shadows of the Dragon Clan. They had already seen his every move. There were a total of 10 spiritual psychics in the Dragon tribe. These 2 were the strongest among them. Their spiritual senses had all reached level 8. 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. In the outside world, it was rare to even see a level 1 spiritual psychic. But the Dragon tribe had 2 level 8 spiritual psychics. This showed how powerful the Dragon tribe was. Of course, these 2 level 8 spiritual psychics were the hidden elites of the Dragon tribe. Even in the Dragon tribe, there were very few people who knew of their existence. The 2 of them used their spiritual senses to explore the entire Dragon Valley every day, guarding the safety of the Dragon Valley. So when Mosher appeared at the entrance of the Dragon Valley, they already knew that Mosher had disguised himself as a member of the Dragon tribe and sneaked into the Dragon Valley. The reason why they did not make a move was because they wanted to know what Mosher was up to. At this time, it was the last night before the Dragon tribe's prodigy battle. The entire Dragon Valley was in a jubilant mood. The battle between 100 prodigies of the Dragon tribe was definitely a rare event for the Dragon tribe. The 2 level 8 spiritual psychics of the Dragon tribe were using their spiritual senses to cover a radius of a few hundred kilometers. Dragon Shirsan, the battle will start tomorrow. To ensure the safety of the Dragon Valley, should we get rid of this kid? The spiritual psychic called Dragon Shirsan said, "No need. This kid only has so little strength. Our Dragon Valley can just send a 5th level desolate hunter to kill him." You're right. But the reward this time is the Dragon Vein. It's a big deal. We can't afford to make any mistakes. Dragon Shirsan shook her head. It's called the Dragon Vein, but it's actually an incomplete one. Other than helping with cultivation, it has no other use. You're right. But we still have to be careful. Dragon Shirsan said, don't worry. Don't we have dragon guards? There are other spiritual psychics. If they can't even handle such a small matter, then they don't deserve to be dragon guards and dragon spiritualists. The other spiritual psyche master listened and thought for a moment before finally nodding. You're right. It seems that I was overthinking things. That morning, the largest waterfall in the Dragon Valley was over 100 meters wide. The 100-meter wide waterfall was surrounded by water vapor. The sun was just shining on the waterfall. The mist around the waterfall formed an arched rainbow under the sunlight. Beside the waterfall was the largest circular plaza in the Dragon Valley. The radius of the circular plaza was about 2 kilometers. Around the circular plaza stood 10 giant dragon statues. Each of the dragon statues was 100 meters long. This square was called Giant Dragon Square. Usually, it was the place where the dragon clan's bullets practiced their martial arts. And today this huge square had become a specialized arena. Around the arena, there were floating spectator stands. These spectator stands were usually hidden underground and did not take up much space. When there was a fight, the spectator stands would be raised using the geomagnetic reaction. The audience sat on the floating stands and had a great view. However, it did not affect the passage of the people on the ground. The floating stands here surrounded the entire square. They could accommodate more than 100,000 spectators. At this time the stands were already filled with people. Emoshir was also sitting on the stands with an excited look on his face. After all, the people around him were very excited. If he appeared to be very calm, it would easily arouse the suspicion of others. Not long after, under the auspices of an elder of the Dragon Clan, 2 prodigies took the lead to appear. These 2 prodigies were both below the age of 30. And their strength was that of a level 5 Desolate Hunter. They had become level 5 Desolate Hunters before the age of 30. Such talent was indeed hard to come by. Then a protective light shield rose around the spectator stands. The entire protective light shield was like a huge bowl that was upside down in the entire square. This light shield was naturally to prevent the aftershocks of their battle from spreading out and injuring others or destroying the surrounding buildings. The people of the Dragon Clan never talked much nonsense. The presiding elder only said a few words, and the battle had already begun. The battle between the 2 was really exciting. Because they were of the same level, their battle experience was similar, so the 2 could be said to be evenly matched. Emoshir observed the battle between the 2. He could clearly see that their combat prowess was much higher than that of an ordinary 5th-ranked Desolate Hunter. With their strength, if they went to the outside world, it would not be a problem for them to defeat other level 5 Desolate Hunters. It seemed that although the Dragon Clan was arrogant, they really did have the ability. This made Emoshir more cautious. The 2 strongest of the Dragon Clan were level 3 Desolate Masters. However, their battle strength was different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. Of course, the strength of the Sea Dragon clone was also different from that of a level 3 Desolate Master in the outside world. It was more than 10 times stronger. With the strength of the Sea Dragon clone, it should not have any difficulty in challenging a level 4 Desolate Master. At this time the battle below had entered a white-hot stage. The 2 had each used their final trump cards. Bursts of flames and continuous roars. Finally, after another 2 minutes, the outcome was decided. However, the winner could be said to have won by a miserable margin. In his current state, his condition would be greatly reduced when he participated in the second round of the competition tomorrow. In the entire day, Emoshir and company watched 100 battles. The surrounding spectators were very excited. I haven't seen such a battle in a long time. Yes, it's definitely the most exciting battle I've seen in recent years. That's right. Whoever becomes the champion will be able to obtain the Dragon Vein. That's a Dragon Vein. With the Dragon Vein, cultivation will be twice the result with half the effort. Maybe 1 year is enough for us to cultivate for 10 years. You're not exaggerating enough. 10 years for us to cultivate for 10 years, 1 month is enough for him. These people were watching the fun, but Emoshir had a deeper understanding of the Dragon Clan's battle strength through this day's battle. With his current strength, if he really became enemies with the Dragon Clan, he would not be able to destroy them. However, it would not be difficult for him to escape from here. On the second day there were only 100 geniuses left. They continued to fight. In the end the top 50 were decided. Among these 50 geniuses, there were 3 who were the strongest. One was called Long Shuang, one was Long Feng, and one was Long Yun. These three were all under the age of 30 and had already become level 10 Desolate Masters. They were only one step away from becoming Grand Desolate Masters. It was impossible to see a level 10 Desolate Master under the age of 30 in other places in the Flaming Origin continent. It was clear that the Dragon Clan was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 443. The three strongest prodigies of the Dragon Clan, Long Shuang, Long Feng and Long Yun. They had all become level 10 Desolate Hunters. The three of them had won easily in the competition. Long Shuang had Ice Attribute Energy. Long Feng had Wind Attribute Energy. Long Yun could cause changes in the weather. These three were geniuses that might not appear in 100 years in the Dragon Clan. But now they had all appeared at the same time. This made the elders of the Dragon Clan overjoyed. With the three of them, the Dragon Clan would shake the entire Flaming Continent. In the final battle of the top three, Long Shuang defeated Feng Yun in one fell swoop due to the uniqueness of the Ice Attribute and won the championship. In the end, the Patriarch, Lord Long, personally awarded the prize. Lord Long had a long black beard that was 2 feet long. Just by sitting there, his entire body was exuding a domineering aura. At this moment, he was sitting on the high platform on the east side of the square. The champion, Long Shuang, walked up the high platform step by step under the gazes of more than 100,000 people. Arriving in front of Long Shuang, he respectfully knelt on the ground and bowed. He said loudly, "Long Shuang greets the Patriarch." The Patriarch of the Dragon Clan, Lord Long, smiled and nodded slightly. But even when he smiled, he was still domineering, causing Long Shuang to not even dare to raise his head. Lord Long said to the Grand Elder beside him, "Grand Elder, give it to me." The Grand Elder beside him hurriedly replied respectfully, "Yes." As he spoke, he took out a dragon vein that was more than a foot long from a box that looked like a safe. The moment Mosher saw the dragon vein, he secretly activated the demonic dragon's eye to appraise the authenticity of the dragon vein. After the blood dragon's eye was upgraded to the demonic dragon's eye, it could appraise the authenticity of items. Soon, the attributes of this item appeared in Mosher's mind. Frowny face item. Dragon vein, attribute, incomplete dragon vein. After being repaired, it can be fused into the body and one can have a true dragon body. Mosher nodded secretly. It was indeed a real dragon vein. However, the 4 words "true dragon body" made him slightly puzzled. He asked in his heart, "Am I not already a real dragon? What is a true dragon body?" The system's voice replied, "Frowny face, not all dragons possess the true dragon body. The colossal dragon realm was divided into colossal dragon, evolved colossal dragon, super evolved colossal dragon, ancient colossal dragon, primordial ancestral dragon and dragon god. Ordinary dragons, no matter how talented they were, could only evolve into super evolved dragons at most, and could not advance any further. Only by fusing with the dragon bloodline can one continue to evolve." Hearing this, Mosher was secretly delighted. Now that there was a chance to mend the dragon veins, he could save himself the trouble in the future. The system continued. Moreover, if the dragon bloodline in the body mutates, different potentials can be activated and different abilities can be obtained. The fire dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the thunder dragon's lightning power. The ice dragon's dragon vein mutated and might give birth to the wind dragon's ability. When Mosher heard the system's words, he was secretly looking forward to it. Strictly speaking, his current attribute was only the fire attribute. As for the ice dragon's breath, it was converted from the fire attribute energy in his body. If his dragon vein mutated in the future and gave birth to another attribute, it would be of great help to his combat power. If that was the case, he was determined to obtain this incomplete dragon vein. Of course, there were dozens of Grand Desolate Masters around him. Their great elder and clan leader had even reached level 3 Grand Desolate Master. Even if he had the Azure Dragon clone, he might not be able to gain any benefits. Therefore he had to wait a little longer. When the sun set in the west, the martial arts competition finally came to an end. Everyone felt that it had not been enough. This year's martial arts battle assembly was the most exciting martial arts battle assembly in the last 100 years. Especially the battle between Long Shuang, Long Feng and Long Yun. It was truly exciting. A martial arts competition like this would probably not happen again in 1,000 years. Therefore that night, when night fell, the Dragon Valley was brightly lit. People were holding a ball to celebrate the success of this martial arts competition. Mosher still did not make a move that night. This was because he had tried to plunder the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader. He did not expect to succeed on his first try. Through the memories of the Dragon Clan's clan leader, he knew that he had been discovered. Now, the two level 8 spirit reader masters of the Dragon Clan and their clan leader knew of the existence of an outsider like him. The clan leader had already given the order for the other spirit reader masters, Long Shuang, Long Feng and Long Yun, to keep an eye on him. The moment he made any movements, they would immediately take him down. Furthermore, this was treated as a test for the three geniuses, Long Shuang, Long Feng and Long Yun. If they could find a way to take him down and easily find out his goal, then the three of them would pass. Of course, torture didn't count. Mo Shi forced a smile inwardly. He had actually been used as a target for their assessment. However, at the same time, this also reminded Mo Shi of when he was on Earth. When he was on Earth, he was treated as prey. In the end, he, the prey, killed the hunter and even came to the hunter's world. In the hunter's world, he continued to ride the wind and waves. He had already done such a thing once. To him, it was a walk in the park. That night, Mo Shi did not make a move. Through plundering the memories of the three of them, he knew that these fellows had some doubts. They had originally thought that their target was the dragon vein, so they had actually set up a trap that night and waited for him to fall into it. In the end, he did not make a move. In the next few days, they would still set up a trap and wait for Mo Shi every night. After all, in their opinion, a stranger who appeared in the Dragon Valley at this point in time must be here for the dragon vein. They just didn't know who it was that dared to provoke the Dragon Clan. Therefore, they had to set up a trap and slowly investigate. And on this day, Mo Shi knew from these fellows' memories that they would set up a trap every night and wait for him to fall into it. Mo Shi had an idea. Since you guys have set up a trap for me, I might as well beat you at your own game. Thinking of this, Mo Shi condensed a doppelganger in the afternoon of the same day. He ordered his clone to steal the dragon vein that night, while his main body had already activated the concealment and disguise skill. He turned into a rock and hid beside the waterfall, secretly observing. Around 3 o'clock that night, the clone used the disguise skill to sneak to Long Shuang's residence. At this time in the house, after Long Shuang obtained the dragon vein, she had cultivated for a few days and was indeed tired. She was sleeping soundly. Mo Shi's clone sneaked into the house. Soon he found the dragon vein locked in the safe at Long Shuang's bedside. Using a small decoding device, Mo Shi's doppelganger easily opened the safe. He reached out to take the dragon vein. However, at this moment, Kacha, a handcuff-like thing, was placed on the right hand of Mo Shi's clone. With a click, it closed. Chapter 444. Mo Shi's doppelganger had just put his hand into the safe when he heard a click sound. Something that looked like a handcuff suddenly popped out. With a crack, it closed around Mo Shi's clone's wrist. Seeing this, Mo Shi's clone hurriedly tried to break free. However, more than 10 tiny needles suddenly popped out from the inner circle of that thing and pierced into the clone's wrist. He injected something into Mo Shi's clone's wrist. Mo Shi's clone immediately felt as if he had lost all his strength. Even if he wanted to use his energy to break free from the handcuffs, it was useless. He was simply unable to activate the energy in his body. At this moment, the lights in the room suddenly lit up. Long Shuang had already sat up. With a smile on his face, he looked at Mo Shi's clone. The door opened and Long Feng and Long Yun walked in with smiles on their faces. Long Shuang laughed out loud. "Junior brother Feng, your move is indeed effective. You're still the smart one." Long Feng shook his head and continued to laugh. "Senior brother Shuang, he is too stupid. Do you really think that our dragon clan is a free market that you can enter and leave as you please?" Long Yun said, "Since we've caught him, then it's time for our hallucinogens to come in handy." As he spoke, he pressed down on Mo Shi's clone's shoulder, and a wave of energy was injected into Mo Shi's clone's body. The energy in Mo Shi's clone's body was immediately completely suppressed. Long Feng took out a syringe, grabbed Mo Shi's clone's arm and injected it. As long as this hallucinogen was injected into the target's body, it would cause the target's brain to produce illusions. In this illusion, one would speak the truth. After 5 minutes, Long Shuang said, "It's about time." Then he asked, "Who exactly are you?" Mo Shi's clone closed his eyes, immersed in the illusion. With an intoxicated look, he said with a silly smile, "My name is Mo Shi." Long Shuang asked again, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Yuzhou." Long Feng curled his lips. "That barren land? Who sent you? What is your purpose?" Imo-Shi's clone replied, no one sent me. I admire the dragon race a lot, so I traveled thousands of miles to visit the dragon race. This is my goal. Shuang, Feng and Yun looked at each other. Long Yun asked again, tell me honestly, what is your purpose in coming to our dragon clan? Imo-Shi's doppelganger was still in a daze as he replied, I've always liked giant dragons since I was young, and I've always admired the dragon race. That's why I've come here on a pilgrimage. Long Yun frowned and cursed, F***ck. Long Feng also shook his head slightly. Why isn't it working? Did he really come all the way from Yuzhou province just for the so-called pilgrimage? Long Yun asked, what do we do now? Long Shuang pondered for a moment, then said, this medicine was personally concocted by me, there can't be any problems. How about this, lock him up first, then we'll slowly think of a way. Long Feng and Long Yun could only nod, that's the only way. He had thought that as long as he caught this fellow and injected the hallucinogenic injection, he would be able to settle this matter. He didn't expect it to be so troublesome. Very quickly, the three of them brought Imo-Shi away from here and locked him in a house beside the waterfall. There were people guarding the house. When Imo-Shi saw this, he was secretly happy. He had completed the first step. Not long after, the door opened again. A woman wearing clothes that saved a lot of fabric walked in. This woman had a hot figure and a curvy figure. The places that should be fat were fat, and the places that should be thin were thin. She was truly a beauty of the world. With a charming smile on her face, she said to Imo-Shi's clone, little handsome brother, why are you here alone? Is it lonely for you to leave your home and come to the dragon clan alone? Do you want your sister to talk to you and relieve your boredom? As he spoke, he leaned towards Imo-Shi's clone. When Imo-Shi saw this, he was speechless. If he had known that there would be such an interrogation, his main body would have gone over. But now this clone had taken advantage of him. That night, Long Shuang, Long Feng, and Long Yun used all sorts of methods to torment Imo-Shi's clone for the entire night. In the end, they didn't get any results. The next morning, the three of them dragged their exhausted bodies back to their respective residences. After Long Feng and Long Yun returned to their residences, they fell asleep. In order to catch this brat, they hadn't slept well these past few days. They hadn't slept for another night, so they were very sleepy. Now that they knew that this brat's motives weren't pure, they had caught him. They could finally have a good night's sleep. As for how to get that brat to explain himself, he would wait until they woke up. However, after Long Shuang returned to his residence, he did not rest. He had just obtained the dragon vein and his heart was still warm. Now that he had some time, he could take the opportunity to cultivate. After cultivating for a full 3 hours, he finally put the dragon vein into the safe. After locking the safe at the head of the bed, he lay down on the bed and fell asleep in satisfaction. After another hour or so, Imo-Shi waited for him to fall into a deep sleep before finally taking action. He had already used his camouflage concealment skill to hide in Long Shuang's room. At this moment, he quietly came to the head of the bed and reached out to grab the insurance cream. The insurance cream had a sensor. If anyone other than Long Shuang touched the safe, it would trigger an alarm. However, this device had long been destroyed by Imo-Shi's dragon will. However, just as he obtained the safe, a figure suddenly appeared behind him without a sound. Imo-Shi sensed the appearance of this figure and thought to himself, not good. He hurriedly tried to use teleportation to escape. A single teleportation was 1,000 kilometers away. At that time, no matter how strong the Dragon Clan's experts were, they wouldn't be able to catch up to him. However, when he used the Dragon Shadow Step, he found that he couldn't take this step at all. It was as if there was some kind of invisible imprisonment around the room. His Dragon Shadow Step couldn't be used at all. Imo-Shi was a little flustered. He quickly turned his head around. The person behind him looked at Imo-Shi with a smile and said indifferently, "Don't struggle in vain. Since you've been caught by me, do you still want to run?" Imo-Shi had just used the Blood Dragon's Eye to see. This person was actually a level 3 Desolate Hunter. It was equivalent to the Sea Dragon clone. This person was the Dragon Clan's Grand Elder. Imo-Shi thought to himself, not good. He wasn't afraid of this person. He was afraid of being held back by this person. Once he was held back by him, the other experts of the Dragon Clan would rush over. At that time, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Thinking of this, he moved his mind. The next moment, his figure disappeared from the room. The Grand Elder originally thought that capturing Imo-Shi was a sure thing. After all, he was a level 3 Grand Desolate Master. If he couldn't even catch a level 3 Desolate Hunter who was a level lower than him, it would be too embarrassing. However, the truth was that it was really embarrassing. That kid really disappeared in front of his eyes. He could feel that that guy didn't use teleportation to disappear, nor did he use a wormhole teleportation device. He had already locked down this room. It was impossible for him to use a teleportation skill or a device to disappear. Chapter 445. Before the Great Elder came, he had already ordered someone to tamper with this room. It was impossible to use teleportation or other teleportation devices to leave this room. However, he never expected that this fellow would actually disappear right under his nose just like that. This caused the Great Elder to be both surprised and angry. A mere level 3 Desolate Hunter had actually escaped right under his nose. This was simply preposterous. Get the spirit reader here, quick. He let out an explosive roar. At this moment, Long Shuang had also been awakened. The first thing he did was to turn his head to look at the safe beside him. However, the safe had already disappeared. Long Shuang's shock was no small matter. Seeing that the Great Elder was in his room, he hurriedly stood up and asked, "Great Elder, this?" The Great Elder said, "Your dragon vein was stolen by that brat." When Long Shuang heard this, he could not believe it. "Impossible, that brat is still locked up." "How?" The Great Elder cursed. "What we caught before was only that brat's clone. We were all deceived by him." When Long Shuang heard this, it was as if a bolt from the blue had struck him. One had to know that with the dragon vein he would have greater potential than the other geniuses. Even the next clan leader of the dragon clan was already in sight. Without the dragon vein his cultivation speed would be much slower. Moreover, the path of cultivation was very long. Without the help of the dragon vein, who knew if other geniuses would catch up or even surpass him? At that time, the position of Patriarch would be in jeopardy. Thinking of this, he suddenly jumped down from the bed. He hurriedly said, "Great Elder, where did that guy go? Let's chase after him." The Great Elder frowned. "I've cast a spatial imprisonment spell on your room. It's very difficult for him to escape. So the biggest possibility is that he's still in the room. However, he can use some kind of invisibility skill, so we can't find him for the time being." Long Shuang hurriedly looked around, but he did not find Mo Sure. While they were talking, a spirit reader had already walked in. This spirit reader was one of the 2 level 8 spirit readers in the dragon clan. His hair was almost all gone, and only a few sparse strands of beard were left. At this moment he felt a little regretful. Originally he thought that the other spirit readers in the clan would be able to discover that kid and control his every move. Therefore the 2 level 8 spiritual readers did not pay any attention to this place. Unexpectedly, that kid still managed to steal the dragon vein. What the hell was this bunch of trash doing? At the same time he spread out his spiritual thoughts. First, they searched for Mo Sure within a 200-kilometer radius. After a fruitless search, he used his spiritual senses to explore the entire house. He checked the people in and out of the house. He still couldn't find Mo Sure. His eyebrows, which had almost no eyebrows, were tightly knitted together as he slowly shook his head. The first elder's heart sank when he saw this. In fact, he had already used thermal imaging, infrared scanning, laser scanning, life detector, and many other detection methods to explore this place. There was no discovery at all. Now, even a level 8 spiritual psyche master's spiritual thoughts could not detect it. Could it be that the kid had already escaped? How was this possible? How did he break through the shackles? Long Shuang was dumbfounded. He had just obtained the dragon vein, and he hadn't even cultivated much before the dragon vein was stolen. "That kid, when I find you, I'll definitely kill you." Seeing that he couldn't find anything, the first elder immediately ordered, "Seal off the entire Dragon Valley and let all the spirit readers investigate the Dragon Valley. All the Dragon Clan disciples, put down the work in your hands and search the Dragon Valley inch by inch. I don't believe that he can really disappear from the face of the earth." "Yes." The few people outside the door replied. At the same time, the first elder brought his men to the place where Mo Sure's clone was imprisoned. However, he discovered that there was no longer Mo Sure's clone. There was only a pile of meat paste. When Long Shuang saw this, he was filled with regret. At this time, Mo Sure had already hidden in his miniature world. His miniature world was equivalent to a space independent of the world. Other people's telekinesis, infrared scanning, radar detection, and other methods could not affect his miniature world. The space imprisonment technique could not affect his miniature world at all. Mo Sure had just discovered that the person behind him was a level 3 Great Desolate Master and that he could not escape with his teleportation, so he immediately hid in there. However, it was easy to hide in, but how to get out was the biggest problem. At this moment, there were so many experts looking for him outside. If he really went out, he would probably be taken down in minutes. Immortality shook his head helplessly. Looking at the beautiful scenery in the miniature world, he shook his head helplessly. Since he couldn't get out, he had to think of a way to fuse with the dragon vein first. Thinking of this, he took out the dragon vein that he had obtained first. This was formed from the fusion of 2 dragon veins. It was about half a meter long, like the spine of some animal. Immortality took out the dragon vein that he had just obtained. The moment this dragon vein appeared, the 2 dragon veins in Immortality's hands seemed to have a gravitational force as they approached each other. Immortality loosened his grip. Ka! The 2 dragon veins instantly stuck together. At the same time, the gap between the 2 dragon veins was rapidly disappearing. These 2 dragon veins began to fuse together at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, a faint light appeared above the 2 dragon veins. In a short 5 minutes, the gap between the 2 dragon veins completely disappeared. They fused into a complete dragon vein. This dragon vein was like the complete spine of some creature. It looked a little scary. But at this moment, Immortality felt a strange sense of familiarity. He felt that this complete dragon vein seemed to contain some kind of huge power. That power was not the power of the physical body, nor was it the power of energy. It was a kind of power that could not be described clearly, but he could feel it. It was a kind of power that every dragon longed to have. When this thing appeared, Immortality's heart started to beat wildly. He asked the system in his mind, "How do I fuse with the dragon vein?" The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face. "As long as you drip a few drops of blood on the dragon vein, your body will automatically fuse with the dragon vein." Immortality nodded and cut the fingertip of his right hand. He dripped a few drops of blood on the dragon vein. Immediately, the dragon vein began to change rapidly. The surface of the sky began to quickly turn blood red, as if it was dyed red by blood. A moment later, some meat actually grew on the blood-red dragon vein. Thin and long tentacles grew out of the flesh. These tentacles seemed to be alive and stretched towards Immortality's right hand. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.